Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Train Sim World 4. Hello, everybody. I'm James, or JD, and we've got Matt with us, who I'm reliably informed, new year, new headphones. Matt, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good,
I'm
thank
very
you.
good, thank you.
I'm enjoying the
enjoying
wireless
the wireless
freedom
freedom
of the new
of the new
headphones.
headphones.
It's
It's
transformational.
transformational.
This
And
is for
This is for
comparison.
comparison.
This is
The
the scraggly old
scraggly old
ones that
ones that have
that have had their
that have had
time.
their time.
they've definitely had their time. I mean, I guess in slightly more important news, we've announced a new game. So
When did we do that?
When did we do that?
I know. I was actually I was in an airport frantically trying to use public Wi-Fi to watch the keynote, of which I was the host of, and it was not a particularly enjoyable experience for me.
We
Matt,
are getting echo. You need to turn off the NDI source volume.
there we go. All
Hopefully
good.
that'll end that now.
I mean, it wouldn't be a stream like ours if there wasn't slight audio issues at the front. I mean, new game, same audio fun, I guess. Yeah, I mean, Train Sim World 4, we're really excited. September 26th is our launch day. There are plenty of packages available, lots to suit every potential eventuality, I guess. Whatever kind of player you are, whatever kind of content you're excited by. Pre-order is available. There are up to 25% discounts on pre-ordering for various different platforms, and also if you get deluxe or special editions of the game, you will also get a 5-day early access and some other goodies as well. Make sure you check out our FAQs page. There's a lot of information on there. There's a lot of detail on there. But Matt, how are you feeling, first of all, now that it's out there in the open and we can finally talk about it with a little bit more openness than we have been beforehand?
It's good. It's good to sort of tell everybody everything that's been going on and what the team have been working on for the last, I don't know, 8 months. It's an awful lot of work gone into it, and I know the team they're also excited to see the feedback as well. So yeah, no, very happy.
We're buzzing really, because as I say, this is something that we're really excited for everybody to try out. And I think the slight difference perhaps with this year's is that we're looking very much at how we can help the community to create awesome things that everyone else can enjoy as well. I think that's kind of one of the overriding themes of Train Sim World 4 is actually that you can create your own stuff. And we'll come on to some of those features in a second. But actually, Matt, what's the kind of if you had to pick one thing about Train Sim World 4 that you're particularly excited by, what is it before we get into the full details?
I can't pick one. There's got to be two.
Okay, well, fine. I'll let you have two. I thought you were just going to say everything, and I was going to say that's a cop-out.
No.
You can have two. I'll let you have two.
There's going to have two. So the first one is free roam.
Okay.
Free roam, being able to put anything you like, anywhere you like, really easily, make it up as you go along, route trains anywhere. It's just ridiculously good fun. The beta testers are having tremendous fun with it. The fact that it lays on top of service mode as well is a very recent addition to the feature the team have put in. And again, that means you've got other trains running around, and you really eye-openingly see how powerful that dispatcher is, because it will dynamically route your trains and so forth. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's a good thing to note actually, because that was added after we recorded the keynote. So actually, it wasn't actually included as part of the keynote. But that will come back to that in a little bit.
It was always a thing that we wanted to do. So it was actually added as a backdoor debug feature. So we thought, well, let's stabilize free roam and then have a look at this. And then after free roam was looking good, we started playing with it. We're like, yeah, this just works. This works really well. Make it so. So we made it into a real feature. And then the other thing for me that I've been finding just to transform the experience for me is the new mini-HUD.
Okay.
The new mini-HUD, it's just changed how I play the game. I'm having to, and in a lot of respects, I'm kind of going back to basics a little bit, because I used to sit and watch the HUD and watch all the dials counting down to 0, and I knew that when we get to this sort of a number on a distance, I was supposed to be slowing down by such and such. It's how I've trained myself to play the game, but those numbers don't exist anymore. Even if you use the mini-HUD. So I'm kind of now like, so if I look out the window and gauge where things are and play, drive properly, and now I've got to try and get used to that again, which I'm sure I will. But I don't have to learn the route. So I'm feeling like I'm driving HUDless, but without having to learning the route, which is just marvelous, because it's much easier to just get used to those bits. Route learning is beyond me.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, one of the things that we're seeing, and we've seen this from lots and lots of player feedback, and actually from what you've just said as well, is that there's lots of things lots of things that are going into Train Sim Mod 4. So we're finding a lot of people saying, oh, actually, this thing's the thing that's exciting me most, or this thing's exciting me the most.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to see the kind of the different variety of things, whether that's a particular route or a particular train or a particular core feature as well. And again, I'll come on to kind of what the structure of this stream is going to be, because we've got a lot to go through, really. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through today how we're going to do this. Now, hopefully everybody has already watched at least parts of the keynote or read some of the roadmap articles that have been released over the course of the last couple of days. If you haven't, really recommend that you read them. But we're going to try and use as much time today to answer some of your questions as possible. We're going to go through all of the things that are included, and we're going to give a quick summary of all of them, but we're going to try and make sure we answer as many different questions about the content as we possibly can do to get that out there as much as we can do, because there's only so much that we can talk about in a written format. We'll have articles, we'll have live streams, we'll have video content that you can see, and you'll be able to get a good feel for some of this stuff. But obviously, we announced it a couple of days ago. We want to try and answer as many early questions as we possibly can do. We're not going to be able to answer everything today, but we'll do our best to go through as much as we can do. Should we start back by showing the Train Sim Mod 4 roadmap?
Let's go for it.
Let's do it. Okay, so as you can see, we've done a little facelift to the roadmap first of all. Hopefully everybody quite likes this approach. I think it provides a bit more of a cleaner roadmap, but again, feedback is very much welcomed. As you can see, we've got a launch section, we've got a 1 to 3 month section, a 4 to 6 month section, and a 6 month plus section. What I will say is that all of these are, I guess there's a little disclaimer at the bottom, they are subject to change, but we like to give people kind of an indicator for how far some of this stuff is away from being released. So on the launch section, you can obviously see we've got the core routes and the locos and the trains that we've talked about already with the release. There will be the editor obviously available. There'll all be the core things that we talk about over the course of today, and there'll also be the Nahverkehr Dresden TSW4 upgrade as well. Within the 1 to 3 month category, we have what we're calling a winter core update. Now, that might be more than one update. We're not 100% sure yet, and we'll come on to Formation Designer suspension improvements a little bit further down the line, but we'll come into that in a little bit more detail. We have a German route, and then we have some of our partner releases as well, including the one that we announced on the roadmap. Sorry, the roadmap. This is the roadmap on the keynote stream, which was Blackpool, Preston, Ormskirk, which is the Just Trains route. We've got a couple of Rivet Games packs as well, and a Swiss route that they're working on. We'll be doing constant patches during this window as well to improve the game based on early feedback. And then, as you can see, 4 to 6 months, 6 months, we have a slew of content from both ourselves and our partners. And probably the most, well, it's not the most important one, but the one that's probably the most eye-opening is that we are preparing a second Austrian route as well. We'll come on to sort of some of the challenges involved in creating new or bringing new geographies into the Train Sim World franchise as we talk about Vorarlberg. But we have plans to bring in a second Austrian route further down the line too. So there you go. There is the roadmap. I'm just going to switch back to our cams. Hello, everybody. We are back. So what we're going to do over the course of this stream, let's talk about pretty much all of those. We've got some questions that have been prepared or from our forum thread. But if you've got any, I'll try and keep track of as many as I can and stick them in as we go through and talk about some of these features. We'll have a little section at the end as well where we'll do slightly more general Q&A and mop up anything else as well. Right. So let's talk Vorarlberg first, Matt. Do you want to talk? In fact, no, actually, there was a question that I wanted to ask beforehand because it was a really good question. Cloudy Skies 21 asks, how did the individual TSW4 core routes each meet the LAMP process? Now, for those people who haven't been aware of what the LAMP process is, it's the process whereby we determine whether a route is suitable for going into one of our games. It's quite a rigorous process, and Matt, you're probably better equipped to remind me what the LAMP stand for, but we put it into a roadmap article probably about 3 or 4 months ago. It's to do with things like our licenses, how appealing we think it might be, the M and the P. I can't remember. Matt, help me out here. Not Matt Peddleston.
M is mix.
It's a mix of content.
P. I should know what the P is. Yeah, no, half the time I can't remember what this acronym stands for, and I have to keep going looking it up,
Yes.
even though it makes perfect sense. But I will remember at some point, and I'll shout it out suddenly, you know.
Yes, but first, let's touch on Vorarlberg first. So in terms of sort of how that perhaps was appropriate for, say, or we felt like it passed through the LAMP process. It's not profit, it's not price. It's not. Don't worry. And sorry, chat. Coming up with their own P acronyms there. But yeah, Vorarlberg. How does that fit into the process? How did it pass through?
So licensing side of it was green. So this is usually red, amber, green, essentially for each of the 4 steps. In fact, there's usually an unofficially an O, a lamp O, which is opportunity, which is what other things could be added to the end of it. There's so yeah, licensing was good. OVB were on board. We've had them on board since TS Classic as well, so good partner to work with. So very happy to do that. Anticipation, covers a number of areas. There's a lot of demand for new countries. There was. So we looked at opportunities for other countries. We particularly wanted to find a country where we could start, moving the team and looking into doing something different, but without being too far adrift from what we understand well. Because what you've got to remember is that with each new railway around the world, you've got new operating practices, you've got new trains that work differently, you've got new scenery. A rail fan that understands Austrian railways doesn't necessarily understand German railways, and so you have to kind of become that rail fan so that you understand it well. So it's kind of like, what's a sensible journey we can take the team on to get them to understand the first sort of. We've done the TGV obviously, but it's a relatively constrained example. Whereas this time it's kind of like, we need to understand that better than normal. So let's do that. So Austria felt like it was a good next place to go. And then we were looking around at a number of different route opportunities. And I think it might have been Lucas. It's Lucas or I that were looking at route options. And I always really liked the 3 Country Corner on TrainSim Classic. Really pretty route, and for 3 Country Corner is the Vorarlberg Railway, and so we revisited to sort of say, well, what would that look like in TrainSim World? There's lots of potential routes you can do, and so we looked at but this was the one that we thought was interesting and was achievable. It has that link to Germany, albeit just briefly. Variety of scenery. It would challenge the team with landscapes to sort of step up. It's like, how can we make sure the landscapes really look good on this? And then mix. There's nice variety of traffic that runs on there, which gives us plenty of opportunity potentially to do other things with it as well. So and then P, prominence, whatever that means. Prominence. There you go. So that basically means
how kind of, I guess, recognizable it might be in terms of sort of the recognizable features, things that rail fans are going to be really interested and excited about.
And a good chunk of prominence for TrainSim World, for train simulation players, is also whether it exists in TrainSim Classic. The number of route requests we get, which are TrainSim Classic routes. It's the thing that people are most familiar with. So that plays into it as well. How popular was it in TrainSim Classic, and how old is it? Because in 3 Country Corner is a very old route now in there. So it's that place, but it's a really interesting route, a really interesting location. So it kind of ticked a lot of boxes, to be honest, that one, as being a really good place to start. Because the thing is, you've got to remember is that LAMP is only part of the process for thinking about what routes we're going to make. The other part of the process is it feasible? Can we do it in the slots that we've got to make, the time allowance, the resource, the people, and so forth that we've got to actually make it? So sometimes you can have maybe a route which is maybe slightly less desirable on LAMP versus one that's super desirable on LAMP, but the super desirable one you can't make because it's just not practical. So it's not the case that it's a simple black and white in terms of these things. But in this case, Vorarlberg actually ticked a lot of boxes, very popular.
Awesome. I tell you what, should we show some images, and we can do some narration over the images, and Matt, you can tell us a little bit about the route itself, and kind of as we go through the images, you can tell us a little bit about what the images are entailing. I'll just swap it now. Here we go. We're going to flash through them quite quickly, so.
Wow, yeah, talent. There's new PIS unique to OBB. Listen, I've noticed there's the landscapes. This is a bit fast, so that's interesting. I can't talk to them this fast.
There's only 5 of them. They rotate. You'll be fine.
Right. Okay. So yeah, new PIS system has been developed for this. So we are retraining the team on how to do PIS systems. It's a very technical system, and with some staff leaving and so forth, it actually was people needed to just take some time and just learn how to use that system and get to grips with it. So we're starting to do that, and this and Antelope have got custom PIS on them. Yeah, that's good to see. Talent One is obviously it's good to see the Talent One in the game in the livery it's had for quite a long time. That's the red BR628, which is a free upgrade on Niddertalbahn when it comes out, and then the shot of the but the mountainscapes on this route are just stunning.
They look amazing, don't they?
They've blown me away when I saw the mountainscapes on this. So the screenshot you want to see in a minute with the Seafire and 122. This is a really interesting thing, that it's a novelty on this route. You're running the trains right next to the main road. That speedometer readout there is for the cars. And basically, if the cars are going too fast, it shows them a big red unhappy face. If they're showing, and well as reading the number out, if it's showing within speed limit, you get a yellow face. Sorry, just a little bit over, you get a yellow. And if they're within speed limit, you get a nice green smiley face. But the radar picks up the trains.
I love it.
In reality. So as you're driving by, you'll see in cab ride videos that this thing is being picked up and it's showing numbers which are much higher than the car traffic running alongside because it's picking up the train. So Lucas in particular worked with the team and said, we kind of have to do that. That's kind of really cool. So they modeled it, and they've even put in all the different smiley faces. So try driving past it at different speeds and you'll see it. It'll see it regarding your driving appropriately. So it's a really nice bit of fun and a bit of a novelty. It's unique to the route. And when people look at it and they're like, why is it doing that? It's 'cause it's not supposed to be telling the train driver what he's doing, but it picks it up because, you know what, you're a car, you're a vehicle.
Yes, and we're midway through. Matt was talking, then I realised that for the duration of this, I put 1500 milliseconds rather than 15,000 milliseconds. So you've now got slightly longer on each of those. I think there's quite a lot of these that I've got, so I apologise. I probably got one of them wrong. But we have changed it, so all good.
There you go.
All good. So
for
Matt,
those landscapes.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Is there anything in particular, Matt, you wanted to sort of mention with regards to Vorarlberg, or people in the chat? Is there any questions around Vorarlberg at all? It's a good opportunity to start asking those questions now, and whilst we're talking about it, we can cover it. I wanted to talk about the timetable.
Yep.
Is there anything timetable-wise that players should be particularly interested in?
So there's lots of traffic going across 2 or 3 S-Bahn lines using the Talent 1. Remember, we've also got the branch to Lustenau, as well as the line down Pledenz. You've got SBB traffic. Use it if you've got the Lucerne add-on from Rivet. So you've got the SBB train there, which you'll be able to run only for a little bit on the route, but you can run it. And it's there, obviously, as AI in the background. Just helps make the Lindau busier. You've obviously got the BR628 coming in from Niddertalbahn. I've seen people asking about what happens with the red 628 versus the blue 628 on Niddertalbahn, and then they're set so that they won't substitute for each other. So Niddertalbahn doesn't get corrupted by red trains, and similarly this doesn't get corrupted by blue trains because they'll be out of the era. So obviously what you do in free roam and scenario planner is entirely up to you, of course, but the layer system won't abuse the reality like that. What else is there? There's freight trains. The low route comes to the DB 185.2 to add some freight traffic. There's also Vectron freight traffic on here as well. I can't remember what else there is, but I think there's a reasonable spread of different trains on there.
That's not bad remembering, Matt, off the top of your head. We will have, of course, information on this sort of thing as we get through to talking about it in a bit more detail, and then we do the preview live stream too, which I believe for Vorarlberg is next week, which is quite exciting. So a couple of questions from the chat. And what year is the route set, Matt?
This route is set, I think, something like 2019. So current day, the island is no longer used. The trains stopped on the other side. And so when we looked at that, we were like, no. If we're going to do a pretty route like this, we need the island. Is kind of was part of the postcard scene when we were looking at the stuff. So, and it doesn't mean going back very far. So we've gone back to 2019, something along those lines. So yeah, it's not modern day. It's just a little bit back a bit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think there's a couple of people that mentioned certain stations were and weren't in use, so I assume that covers what you were talking
Yeah,
about. So,
yeah.
cool. Anything else from a Vorarlberg perspective that you are particularly interested in talking about tonight, Matt?
So one thing is and this is something that will come up a couple of times, is neutral sections.
Oh, yes.
So the route features neutral sections. I mean, it doesn't really make that much of a difference, but you'll observe, it'll be there in the train. You'll see the effects of a neutral section. Modern trains pretty much coast through them; you don't have to worry about it, but they are implemented, so they're there.
Cool. And safety systems?
The usual spread of German style safety systems. I think it's PCB and CIFAR on this one. And
Cool.
obviously you've got Austrian signalling, which is not quite the same as German signalling. So I'm prepping a nice 6-hour video for that.
Oh, can't wait. You mentioned actually that you've obviously got two sort of countries as well, which I assume have slightly different systems.
You got the
And
different
there's a
systems.
border crossing as well. Is that something that we have, I guess, modelled in how it is in real life?
Yeah, I was really disappointed by the border crossing, to be honest. And I don't mean in the game; I mean in reality. It's just such a non-event in reality. I was like, Lucas, if we got like any "Welcome to Austria" type boards or anything like that, they don't have them. And so I was like, so show me the border crossing then. You know what it is? A bridge, a little bridge.
I
It's
mean,
like, and what you can see though is on one side of the bridge you've got German catenary, and on the other side of the bridge you've got Austrian catenary. So there you go. Enjoy your border crossing, folks. It's like it's not the same as the West Coast Main Line when you leave England and go to Scotland, and there's these like, hulking great boards there welcoming you to in whichever country you're going to. It's like, no, it's a non-event. So I was a bit disappointed by that. But yeah, it is modelled exactly as it looks in real life, but actually there are quite contrasting styles between the catenary. So it's actually quite you feel that at least.
yeah.
At the bridge.
Flibble says no stopping on the train for police to walk through checking passports. That's a
No.
shame. Okay, fantastic. We'll stop. We've got lots to get through, so we'll finish on Vorarlberg there. But the live stream for Vorarlberg, the preview live stream, we are planning next week, and we're also hoping to do a couple of Talent One walk around videos and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff coming for Vorarlberg next week. So we're excited to be able to share a little bit more about that with you. Let's talk Antelope line, should we now, Matt? The US route. So that's Antelope line from Los Angeles to Lancaster. And I think we described it in the keynote as Cajon Pass meets Peninsula Corridor. So I'll kind of come back to the lamp question on this one, Matt. What was it about this route in particular that kind of allowed it to kind of go through that process and pass through and be developed? And why do we think it is a really interesting route for Train Sim World 4?
So the start of the journey really is that US passenger is always is the most popular US content, and but I think everybody is kind of, except unless you live in New York, everyone's kind of done with East Coast passenger and keen to see something else. So fortunately, our licensing team working with Metrolink were able to secure that license in plenty enough time and get us a stunning recording trip to go and reference trip to go and see them in Los Angeles. So we looked at I think we lamp reviewed 3 or 4 Metrolink routes, and the Antelope line came out top. Wasn't by a huge margin, but it came out as the one that was expected to be the more popular of them. I don't remember exactly the reasons, where a lamp review is kind of like a red, amber, green on each of these things and then a massive document. But it was sort of rated as being the more popular of the ones we looked at, with San Bernardino probably being the second one that was in there. I kind of like both of them. But what I liked about Antelope line was that it sort of does something we've not done before, in that it's short, easy drivable passenger trains, but you've got that American freight over the desolate wastelands sort of experience. It's not busy on trains, but I don't think it needs to be. Not everything has to be about running around in the centre of New York or centre of London or something like that. It's the rest of the world don't have railways like that. It's kind of you're going to have different experiences. So this one is about you and your train and completing that journey rather than being in the bustle of other trains. It's an interesting journey, and with the stops that are going on and the need to meet the schedule, of course, there's bits of single. There's lots of single track. There's lots of double track. where you'll get meats and so forth potentially. And then you've got the central maintenance facility just outside Los Angeles. There's all the depot runs in and out of the CMF. And obviously got LA Union Station, which is stunning. So there's quite a lot going on the route. Again, so licensing a massive tick, brand new license, anticipation scored very highly for a wide range of reasons. Another US passenger route, somewhere different, not where we've gone before. And mix. There's the different trains that they run. While we were out there, we recorded not just the F125. We recorded a range of other stuff as well. I won't say names and numbers because then people will jump to conclusions because nothing else is planned. But when we go to a depot, we record everything they'll let us record, and we get photos of everything they'll let us get photos of. And I have to say, depot managers just like, how can we help? What can we do? Yeah, go on, off we go. So we've got some other stuff. So mix wise, I think there's some really interesting possibilities there.
There's freight as well, isn't there?
And there's freight on there as well, although Metrolink obviously don't work with the freight stuff.
Yeah.
But we got the freight stock. We've already stock that we've already got in the game, and then that layers onto the timetable. And then prominence wise, I mean, if you're in Los Angeles, it's all about Metrolink, isn't it? So in Los Angeles, I think there's a few of us here know where Los Angeles is. So it's really interesting. When we were developing the route, actually, this topic of Vista Canyon Station came up, which was really interesting, and we were able to get all the architects' scale drawings and plans of what the track changes would look like, what signalling changes would look like, what the station would look like. So, working with Metrolink, we modelled it as it will be when it opens shortly, if it's not already opened.
That's also that's a really exciting, really interesting dynamic to this. And as I say, if you've not got the opportunity to go to that station, you haven't had the opportunity to go to that station in real life, you might actually be able to go to it in TSW4 first.
Yeah.
That when we talked about that to begin with, and when you told me that was a thing, I was like, oh, that is really interesting. I'm here for this. And I think the other thing as well, when I was watching the keynote back, is when we did the audio tease of the horn. I think it was. I think a lot of people were like, what is that? But it is a very unique loco, isn't it? It's not. It's a very interesting sounding and looking thing. It doesn't feel like it perhaps should fit there, and that also adds a slight intrigue, I think, from me.
Yeah, there's definitely, I'm probably going to get some hate for this, but it feels like there's a bit more European influence coming into loco design these days over in America. Even though this one is in EMD, it's 100% American, but it's still, you look at someone like MBTA with their HSP 46, I think, they're not a million miles apart in the sort of some of the visual of them, and it seems to be, and I think it's making the railways look really. They're more appealing in terms of the, because I imagine this is partly down to the railways and the image that they're trying to put forward. Having a GP40 or something like that, it's just like, yeah, it's a train. It will pull. It's technically capable of pulling coaches, but it's not the greatest thing to have on your brochures and your tickets and things like that. Whereas that F125 looks stunning. You'd be really happy to have that on the front of your brochure. So, and the same with the Rotem cab car. I've always thought they look really odd, but in a kind of a pleasing way. With the one window that hangs down more than the other ones do, and it's just an interesting set. So again, it was a really good opportunity for us to, because they also run MP36s like Caltrain do on the bullets, and of course it's like we had the opportunity here to not just reuse the MP36 but actually put the brand new stock on there in a whole new train. So that was being able to get the reference trip and get all the resource that we needed. And since then, working with people from Metrolink who have then been providing regular feedback on the stuff we've been doing. Literally the other day, we were adjusting the camera height based on someone sitting in the seat sending us photographs. It's just like that level of access and back and forth is just unprecedented. It's superb.
Should we show some screenshots, Matt?
Let's do that.
Let's do it. Okay, all right. So,
Los Angeles Union Station.
You've got longer to go through this time out.
Okay. There you go. This is what I wanted to see. These are the canyons and the sort of the middle area of the route. This landscaping is beautiful. You have not seen anything like this in the game before. Almost, it's at the same level, if not better than the stuff in Vorarlberg. It is really, really pleasurable to drive through. It just feels so different to what we've done before in terms of the visuals. You think about Cajon Pass, which was built with LiDAR. this is the LiDAR with the new terrain texture, and it elevates it massively. See the Los Angeles skyline that's been put in there. It's it's beautiful.
Oh, you finished a little bit early there, Matt.
I ran out of steam on that one really quick,
I
didn't
know.
I?
Just while we wait for this one to. There we go.
There you go. It's I don't know where this is.
Do you know couple of quick
Burbank.
Okay, couple of quick ones. How long would players expect an end-to-end route to look like? How much time, sort of in minutes or hours, would players expect?
I think if you do an end-to-end run, it's a good couple of hours.
Okay.
What we've done is we've split some of the services up so that they stop at various different places. So some of them are like via Princessa and so forth. And then you can do a bit of the run, or and then you can work out what you want to do. Some of them run full. You can obviously because they sort of stop and start at stations. It's not like the freight runs where you have to weirdly stop a freight train nowhere and then carry on. So it kind of works better. But yeah, you can pick and choose what you want, so you don't have to run a full 2-hour service. But there you go, and there's that F125 with the new volumetric fog.
Oh, we'll come back to volumetric fog a little bit later, but yeah, it looks great. How many stations does the line have?
12, I think.
I have this detail on the detail is on, if you go on the roadmap article, which I will try to find and get you that information for right now, but you'll be able to find that on there. I believe it's on the little information card for all of the routes. Let's see if I can quickly find it for you.
In this screenshot, one of the things you'll notice is there's new foliage as well. So actually, there's one of the reasons the routes feel different is some of the new foliage that's been done on the routes. It's a different color tone, it's a different style. Yeah. It's quite detailed. It's really nice.
Yes, so it is 75.6 miles, 123 kilometers. It has 13 stations, and I think that's all of the information. You obviously mentioned about sort of the layering and stuff. I think we'll provide full details on that again a little bit closer to the time. I've seen a couple of questions about the different freight traffic on the route. I think we'll cover that a little bit closer to release. And anything else from you on this particular route, Matt?
All I'll say is Los Angeles is a famous location for movies. There is a scenario called Blockbuster.
Oh, you tease.
Enjoy.
You tease.
Enjoy.
And there's again, we'll come back onto these in a little while, but in the most recent one, the one that's released today, we talk about sort of scenario moments as well, which is an interesting thing that we'll come back to a little bit later on too.
There is actually one thing worth calling out. Someone's talking about whether or not there's access or anything on this route. So in reality, they use a system called IETMS. Which is a form of PTC, and your alphabet soup ends there for the moment anyway. PTC, Positive Train Control. It's an onboard safety system. In the game, that is not implemented. And the reason for that, and we've dug into it a bit, it's not like we just didn't do it. It's spent a bit of time looking into it, and that's a very complex safety system. It's far more complicated than any of the safety systems that we've seen in the game previously, or come anywhere near, to be honest. So there's quite a large engineering overhead to try and figure out how we even do those things, or if we can even do those things, because there's no public manual for what this system does, and it is a really complex system. So it's not there. Alert is obviously in the train as you expect, but the other screen remains blank, I'm afraid.
Okay. A few player questions. So we have we've actually answered all of the ones that I had just in the conversation, to be honest. Nice. So Tomato Train asks, why is the MP34PH3C not included in the Antelope Valley line? I think you kind of touched on it earlier.
Yeah. What are the plans for that? Moving on.
Matt, what have I told you? What have I told you? Okay, well, we'll leave that there then. let's any other questions at all for Antelope Line? Put them in the chat now. Max, we've already mentioned freight services. We'll tell you a little bit more about those closer to release, as well as all the rest of the timetable information, like the amount of services and all that kind of stuff. There's a couple of little things that we're finalising and getting sorted right now. You might have noticed I've got a little bit of a tail behind me as well because my cat's just jumped on my lap. So we'll come back to cats a little bit later on as well. With
You
regards
bring
to
the tail, I've
Southeastern.
got the ears. We're all good.
Yes, so yeah, that's true. And actually, one of the cats is called Phoebe, and my cat is also called Phoebe. So I don't think there's any relation to that. But anyway, let's move on from Antelope then, and go on to. It feels like a good opportunity to talk about audio recording because obviously we did quite a lot of recording within Metrolink or with Metrolink for the Antelope line in particular, but we have a couple of little photos of the trip to to Los Angeles to get the source material. But Matt, I don't know if you wanted to just while we're going through some of these pictures, A, give a little bit of commentary on it, and B, talk about the audio and the sourcing of the audio from within Train Sim World 4.
Yeah, absolutely. So we surveyed everything that we could find. So we got the Bombardier cars. This is the team looking at taking pictures and doing recordings. And there's been a few people commenting on that top left picture being actually a Surfliner car. That's fine. We record, like I said, we record and capture everything we can possibly lay our hands on. So you can see here how you do the recordings. This is the recording device there, a little tiny thing strapped on, and then it's got the microphone with the covers on it, and the little wraps the tubes there is a little thing that Adam, our lead audio engineer, has put on as a neat thing. It allows us to capture really good sound, but not get all the wind noise and so forth on it. So it's really good. So we strap a bunch of microphones around the train and then drive the train around. So Metrolink set up 2 special trains for us. Which are empty coach services, actually just with our team on them, and they drove them up and down the line. Same as when we went to Caltrain, saying, "What would you want us to do?" Notching up, notching down, and driving, and so we were able to get traction motor sounds separately from engine sounds, which you can hear in the game. We've got the running sounds along the track joint sounds, along with the ambient sounds you get in the cab, and all sorts of things. So it's just like you want to get lots of different microphones, and then you have to then combine the whole thing together in the game to give you the final experience. So when we get access like this, we can actually capture all the different nuances. The problem, for example, if you just record the train with a single microphone, is all this stuff is all merged together and you really can't do anything else with it. Whereas when you can do it like this, you can record all the individual pieces, and then the game can recombine that in reality. And you'll notice that the traction motors and the engines are really, really nice.
Really, really nice.
Nice.
So that's obviously not the only recording trip that we've done in relation to Train Sim World 4. We've done things with Siemens for Vorarlberg. We've done a few other bits and pieces with Flying Scotsman. We've done work with LNER. Am I missing anything? Vectron. Lucas got some stuff for Vectron. Right?
That was the Siemens.
Oh, sorry, that was the Siemens stuff, wasn't it?
That was the Siemens. So we did 2 trips for the Vectron. Where we went out to Kufstein, working with Locomotion, who are a freight operator out there, who lease Locos from Railpool. So they worked with us when we were. Again, it was very similar actually. That we had to train the locomotive for the day and the driver, and they set a path, and we drove for 100 miles and then drove it back again. Well, they drove obviously, and we recorded sounds. Flying Scotsman, I think we had a couple of recording trips on the Flying Scotsman, getting various things. Again, they've been really helpful. LNER, we had a couple of trips. Plus, we also worked with Armstrong Powerhouse to bolster, because we weren't able to get everything that we wanted from the trips we did. So Armstrong we worked with to get to fill the gaps. So yeah, lots and lots of recording trips. So this stunning audio. It really is amazing what you can do when you get this kind of access.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it in the keynote as well, but all of the licensors have been really, really helpful with this kind of thing, and that just makes things a lot easier and a lot better for players when they actually get to experience it on release day or early access day, depending on which you get. Just going to quickly interject with a question that we've seen mentioned a few times. I should have included it in the admin section, silly JD. But of course, as with Train Sim World 3, any Train Sim World compatible content that you already own will transfer over. You will need to re-download it with Train Sim World 4, but it will transfer over. And the current plan, and we have no reason to suggest that it's not going to be this, is that everything will be available from day one. I know there was a few challenges last year with Sony and PlayStation in particular, but the plan is for everything to be available on day one, and we haven't had anything to the contrary thus far, so that's all good. Yep. Okay. East Coast Mainline, Matt?
Let's go East Coast Mainline.
East Mainline. Right, so I think this is probably the one, I think, when we're talking about lamp process, probably the most interesting one, because we've seen obviously a lot of players that have fed back that East Coast Mainline, obviously a very, very long route.
Yes.
It probably, well, it is kind of impossible for us to do the whole thing. Why is it that we've chosen this particular branch of the East Coast Mainline?
So we chose this section for a couple of reasons. I mean, doing the East Coast Mainline, doing a part of the East Coast Mainline was a no-brainer. This release had to have a part of the East Coast Mainline in it. So we've been looking at a number of different options around there. One obviously is London Peterborough. The challenge with London Peterborough, there's a couple of things. One of them is it looks like a lot of routes we've already done, and people saying they wish we'd do less EMU commuter lines. It's not quite that, but it is reminiscent of some of that stuff. It's also incredibly difficult. It's quite a long line, similar to what we're doing, but it's got an awful lot of stations on it, So it's like London Brighton, but maybe twice as big. And London Brighton was a hard route to make, so it's kind of like, that might be a challenge. Let's have a look at other options. It's not to say we won't come back to it maybe in the future. I've got no plans at the minute, but it didn't feel like the right place to start. So we're looking at other options, and James actually came up with the idea of doing Peterborough Doncaster, because it's a good stretch. It's 80 miles, so it doesn't feel like a short run. One of the complaints about Great Western from an HST perspective was, feels like, it's about 40 miles, that one. It feels like you're just getting up to speed and it's time to slow down. And same with somewhat similar with the TGV on Marseille-Avignon. So we thought, well, if we're going to do, the Azuma was the obvious train. It's kind of the reason. One of the reasons to do the East Coast Mainline is to model the Azuma trains. And so it's like, well, if you're going to be driving fast, this feels like this has kind of a racetrack feel to it. It's kind of like TGV in the UK, and that happens to be, TGV happens to be one of the most popular routes in the game. So that's really interesting. What else can we do with it? Well, you can run the 158s between Peterborough and Grantham. There's some more to see it. You'll see the 700s, obviously, down at Peterborough. You can't drive them. That's a shame. It would have been nice to do more with the 700s, but this is about the 800. We're here for the 800 in this route. And the 800, one of the things that's really nice about it, the 801 in our case, the Azumas, is that it's not just a point-to-point. It's not just Peterborough, then Doncaster. You've got 3 stops in the middle, and some of the services will stop at those and different patterns of those. So it feels like there's more to do on it. And again, at 80 miles, it feels like it's a substantial journey as well. So that's really good. So and we looked at other sections. I'm a particular fan of Newcastle Edinburgh, but that's about 140 miles or something like that, which is way outside of what we were able to do. So maybe one day, but because I particularly like the bit where you run along the coast. So that was the reason. But that was the reason we ended up settling on this line, sort of like this theme of the racetrack, really doubling down on what you can do with the 800. More stops for the 801 to do than you would on the London Peterborough line, and just really focusing on that side of the gameplay, giving a really substantial UK journey.
Yeah, I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, but obviously we'll talk about Scotsman in a second. But there is a connection with Scotsman too, right? So that it's not obviously the Azuma is the kind of the big the East Coast Mainline sort of staple, but there is a reason why also Scotsman is running on this section of the East Coast Mainline too.
Yeah, so it did the 100 miles an hour on this section of the East Coast Mainline, and it's obviously Doncaster is where it's built. So it sort of harks back to the Flying Scotsman really nicely. Yeah, so that's sort of what that did was sort of reinforce, that this feels like the right place to go, and then all these other things get going. You're just like, no, this wraps up into a nice package.
Yeah. And James 64 asked why because you mentioned the 801 a few times. Why is it the 801 rather than the 800? Is it just a sourcing thing, or is it a kind of a creative choice?
Sourcing thing. We wanted to do the 800, but when we were when we were talking to LNER, they got a railway to run, and what they couldn't do was guarantee which train we would get reference for on the day. So the team turned up for the depot, and an 801 turned up. So that's what we got the reference for. Now, if you're thinking, but an 800 and an 801, they're basically the same. Why don't you just make an 800 out of it? They are very similar, but they're not exactly the same. And we know how much you like that detail. There's different exhausts on the roof, I think, of an 800, and the 3 diesel engines on the 800 versus the one on the 801. There's going to be sounds we need to think about there. There might be different interfaces in the cab, and it's just like, until we can get into one and confirm what is and isn't the same, then it's difficult to actually, we could guess, but that's not the right answer, is it? So we've modeled the 801 as the electric version. We have modeled the diesel engine as well. So it's obviously not a fast one, because it's only got a single engine instead of the 3 on the 800. But you will be able to switch on the diesel engine and drive in diesel mode as well. So that's why we've ended up with the 801. Still absolutely blown away by it. It's the 9-car 801/2. We've also, out of the 801/2, made the 801/1 5-car version as well, and figured them both into the service patterns. Again, just adds a little more variety to what's going on there. And then what we're doing is we're factoring in the 801s into the 800s service patterns, where it makes some sense. Some of them actually need diesel before they switch off, and those ones we've not modelled because they wouldn't work. They just look silly with flying pantographs. But for the other trains where they are entirely electric for the duration of the thing, we've left them in, and that's bolstered the service count as well. So there's quite a lot to do on the route, quite a lot to see, and flying through the English countryside at 125 miles an hour on this is actually really good fun.
Nice one. Shall we show some screenshots?
Let's see screenshots.
Lovely.
Look at that. Azuma is just such a gorgeous train.
It's my local. Well, it's my local as well, because I live on the Peterborough King's Cross part of the line, so I see the Azumas fly past my house pretty much multiple times an hour. So yeah, this is really exciting for me as well.
Yeah, it's good to have this one in there. This is the Mallard where it broke its speed limit, or broke its speed limit, broke the world record. The post is there in reality, and we've modelled that here, and a sneaky little shot showing some more volumetric fog going on there as well. So quite like that. It was taken by one of the beta testers. In fact, I think a lot of these have been taken by beta testers.
I should have mentioned that earlier. Actually, a lot of the shots that we're showing you today aren't actually taken by us. They're taken by our beta community. So thanks very much to them. But hopefully, again, it gives you a bit of an indication that, as I say, some of the stuff that you'll be able to capture yourself when you get into it too. Yeah,
exactly. That last shot was the Newark Flat Crossing, and you'll have the 158s going one way and you going the other way. So that's quite interesting. This is the Azuma in the snow. What else have we got? Excited. Oh yes, the two. I think the 5s couple up to make 10s as well.
Nice. You mentioned other layers, Matt. You mentioned the 158 and you mentioned the 700. Is there anything else that layers onto this route? Obviously on the Scotsman as well.
Yeah, Scotsman. So this is Peterborough with the 700. So just to be clear, the 700 doesn't go any further north than Peterborough, so you won't be able to drive it. But you'll see them shuttling backwards and forwards as AI, just to make Peterborough feel a little bit more rich. It's not strictly the right subclass of 700. Should be the FLUs, and we've modelled the RLU. This is one of the depots you can get inside as well. But having the 700 in that form there just helps make Peterborough feel a little bit more alive. That was the reason we did it.
Yeah. Sophie's asked, level crossings animated. Is Thrumpton signal box modelled as well?
Level crossings are animated. I have no idea about the signal box. I assume so. If it's on the route, we model it, but I've not looked at that particularly. I can go and have a look later.
Cool. Any other questions?
FLU and Londo says FLU, RLU, what does that mean? Full length unit and reduced length unit. If you go back and look at the material on the 700, one of them is the 8-car, one of them is the 12-car unit, essentially. We modelled the RLU for Southeastern high speed. So we've used that So it's in the Peterborough thing, because again, it just fleshes the Peterborough out, makes it look busier.
Cool. And we've got
And
the
it looks the part. Go on, sorry.
We've got the crossing at Newark as well, haven't we?
Yeah, we showed that. There's a screenshot here of Newark Flat Crossing. There it is, in fact.
There we go.
And someone says, have you modeled 5-aspect signaling? So this route has really unique signaling for the UK. It has got 5-aspect signaling. Normally you've got 4-aspect at most in the UK, which is green, double yellow, yellow and red. This has got flashing green, double yellow, yellow and red. Flashing green was done as a short-term trial to see whether or not they could get trains running at 140 miles an hour. And flashing green meant that you were clear up to that speed. Ultimately, it was abandoned as a trial because the safety organisations reckoned that relying on seeing the signals outside, even with the extra aspect, wasn't good enough, and cab signalling must be implemented for exceeding 125. However, the flashing green aspects were never actually taken away. The drivers were just trained to treat it as a normal green aspect. So you will see flashing green aspects when you drive on this line.
Interesting. Okay, that is pretty unique actually. Probably should have mentioned that in the keynote, really, shouldn't we? That would have been quite an interesting little thing to mention. But anyway, okay. Just seeing if there's any questions. Does Scotsman? We'll come on to Scotsman in a second, but I'll ask it now. Does Scotsman layer on in timetable mode?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, cool. So you might see a Scotsman going up and down the route too. And Mrs. Timeless says the Newark Flat Crossing looks absolutely spot on. Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Cool. Okay, we have got quite a lot still to go through. So, Matt, is there anything else East Coast Mainline related you want to talk about?
Neutral sections before anyone asks. Yes.
Yep. Cool. Right. Okay. I'm gonna be strict with this from here on in. It's my bedtime.
Fun.
My bedtime, not too distant future. So let's talk Scotsman then. Leads nicely on from East Coast Mainline. How excited, Matt, are you for the thought of bringing Scotsman to TSW4? It is in its centenary year.
If there's a steam engine to make, there's two, isn't there? There's Mallard and Scotsman. So it is so good to see the Scotsman in there, and the team have just knocked it out of the park. It's stunning, and some of the screenshots the beta team have been able to take of it have just been mind-blowingly good. So I'm really, really happy with that, and we've got the Mark II rail tour set to go with it, so that it's all air braked. As well, and obviously the Scotsman's dual, so you can run it with Mark 1s on vacuum as well if you want to. So yeah, it's great fun, and obviously you've got a nice racetrack to stretch its legs on, but you've also got free roam and scenario planner. Put it anywhere and enjoy it.
Yeah, take it on its world tour. It's going on a real life world tour. Let's take it on a
I've already told Lucas I'll be running it up to Bludenz on the Vorarlberg line, and he ain't going to stop me.
Can't wait to see it on a Rosa.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, should we show some pictures? Let's get to the good stuff. Cool.
There you go, look.
Oh, these screens again. Some of these are taken by our beta team as well, so big thanks to them.
It is absolutely stunning, and these are taken using the photo mode. So all these effects you're seeing are not added by Photoshop. These are taken using the in-game photo mode. So it's amazing. It's just stepped up the quality of the screenshots. They're just incredible what you can do with them, and the way that the team have been using the tools has been really good. Look at that Scotsman right next to the Azuma there. I love this shot.
Oh, so good. And we really should have saved that for will it appear on timetable mode question, really, shouldn't we? But there we go. A couple of questions in the chat. Steam physics improvements. I mean, I guess this has been modelled from scratch to a certain extent because it's a new loco. It's a different.
It's a new loco, but the underlying steam physics behaviors in the game haven't changed. So it's the same. It's the same underlying steam physics system as previous. It's a new implementation for the Scotsman, the same as every loco has its own implementation.
And manual firing. Any update on that at this point?
Not at the moment, no.
No. Okay. I'm seeing if there's any other questions for Scotsman. I've covered a couple. Thanks, Leica, for that. I think I hopefully covered your question. Londo Sparks asked, any more steam trains? Well,
steam training.
Steam train. Oh, sorry, more steam training.
So there's 3 tutorials in Training Center for steam engines.
Okay. again, I'm going to say this now. Any questions on is XYZ being added? And this is a roadmap stream, so you should be expecting it. Any questions related to that is, if it's not currently on the roadmap by name, then it's not something that we have announced yet, and it's not something we'll be announcing tonight. So you've got the roadmap, you've got all of the things that are coming for however long we talked about in the on that graphic at the start. So that's what we've currently announced. Anything else is mere speculation at this point.
A few people have asked over the course of it whether or not the corridor will be accessible in the tender. At this point, I'm going to say no, and that way, if we make it work, it'll be a nice surprise. But at this point, it's looking unlikely because I want the team to focus on getting the rest of the Scotsman A1 or A3. But yeah.
Yeah, James mentioned when we were chatting to him about it that he's managed to get the camera in there, but as I say, I don't know necessarily if that's kind of answering that question or not.
Yeah, I'm not expecting it at this point to be an operable feature, but yeah, it is on our wish list if everything goes really smoothly.
Okay, cool. I'm seeing if there's any other questions from the forums on it.
Yes, Matt will be making the Flying Scotsman pink. Yes.
Of course. I wouldn't have it any other way. Okay. General question then for, we'll come on to Vectron in a second, but will the TSW4 content layer onto existing Train Sim World routes? So there's a couple of mentions that were asked, sort of Metrolink onto Cajon Pass at San Bernardino, the Azuma at Edinburgh Waverley, that kind of thing. I think we can at this stage say that at least for release, then the ways you'll be able to experience these trains will be on their native route, and also whatever you choose to cook up on any of the different tools that are available to you to do so, the likes of Scenario Planner, Free Roam, all of that kind of stuff. At least for launch window, we don't have plans currently to backport them onto older routes at this stage.
Not at the moment.
Cool. Oggy asks a good question. Will this be re-released onto Xbox Game Pass? This is an FAQs document, but it will not be on Game Pass, no. And Train Sim World 3 will be leaving Game Pass on the... I want to get this date exactly right. I think it's the end of September. So there's more detail on the FAQ around that. September 1st. Thanks, Red Leader. Cool. Okay, Vectron. Matt, tell us a little bit about the Vectron, because I think this was probably one of the worst kept secrets in Train Sim World history, closely behind Train Sim World 3. Guilty. So tell us a little bit about Vectron and I guess why particularly German rail fans should be really excited.
I mean, German rail fans will already know why they'll be excited. It's like the most. It's modern. It's powerful. It's Lucas described it as a computer on wheels. It looks amazing. It's very recognizable in modern railways in Germany. So it's kind of the big thing at the moment. So it's amazing to get it in the game. But it's working with some of the people that we work with externally that have helped us get a lot of physics improvements and working on some of the detail on screens and so forth. There's a lot of functionality on the screens on this locomotive as well. There's just a whole new level of realism been achieved on this one. I think that should be good. And it comes with the Janos wagons as well, which is a sorely missing part of the freight library for the Germans as well. So it's good to get those in. Then that's another no operator actually. Those with those are VTG branded. So there's some good stuff there. And then we've put all the gameplay onto Dresden. And of course that was kind of where things started to go wrong from a trying to keep it quiet perspective, because the update to Dresden went out and everyone looked at the timetable and said, wait. So that was but anyway, that was fine. So yeah, it just looks great. We worked with Railpool with their branding, who are big fans of what we do. They were very keen to see it in the game, and then we got the obviously worked with Locomotion twice to get the all the reference and so forth. They were really good. So yeah, we've had a lot of help to get this thing to the level it's at, and you can see it. Honestly, it's really nice.
And on that note,
this is. I mean, I'm still looking at the mountains, but let me look down a bit. This is actually one of the formations. Yeah, this is one of the formations that comes for Scenario Planner, which lets you use the Vectron in passenger trains. I don't know whether or not we have it in scenarios or services or anything. I don't think so, but certainly there's a wide range of formations linking to just about everything that'll let you use the Vectron in all sorts of different places. So obviously, power-wise, it supports German and Austria. This is a multi-system version of the Vectron, you can support the two-wire overhead systems.
And you mentioned it's available on Vorarlberg as well, or there'll be playable services on
Yes,
Vorarlberg.
there'll be one scenario and playable services as well on Vorarlberg. So we thought that was kind of had to do that and give it the extra gameplay on the Vorarlberg route as well.
Cool. There are these screenshots. It just looks so sort of sleek and cool, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's so it looks so technologically advanced even from the outside.
This screenshot's interesting because the screens are all in different places now in the latest build, because the Railpool Vectron has a speedometer on the screen to the right, which is kind of weird, and we're still not sure whether we might change that back because it makes it harder to drive. But that's where they are in reality, and the middle screen's actually blank, so that's where the ATMS is. Ebola's on the screen above, so it's like there's some variations even on what you're seeing here in terms of where things are right now. But this is an interesting, different experience to drive this train. It's really good.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. I know how much kind of, I guess, source material and effort has gone into making sure this is as interactable as we possibly can make it. So really excited to see how that sort of manifests in when people are able to drive it. I guess the follow-up thing is that Nahverkehr Dresden will be its home route and will also be upgraded to Train Sim World 4 feature set as well. I don't believe that. I think we're still working on a few final pieces for that, Matt, at the moment. So I don't think we have too many screenshots to cover it at the moment. But we've
got no screenshots of that. Release. Yeah, what I've seen so far, Lucas has been and the team have been underway with it, and it's looking good. So one thing I will point out here, and it was raised on the forums, is a couple of these screenshots. So the headlights with the wrong lights being done for headlights, that's being fixed.
Yeah, cool. Anything else on Vectron or Dresden, Matt? As far as I'm aware, there are a few other little small fixes coming to Dresden, but there's nothing massively huge other than it's a pretty big update, bringing everything up to Train Sim World 4 characteristics and feature set. There's a couple of sort of tutorials and sort of early gameplay things that we've fixed in relation to the route. Is there anything else worth mentioning?
I don't think so. I think that I think it's adding another route to another loco to Dresden. It's 5 locos in Dresden. So adding another one to it means that the busiest German route we've got just becomes even busier. I love driving Dresden Riesa. It's a really interesting route to drive because it's just so much going on all the time. And for those of you that are familiar with it, the backwards driving freight train has been fixed.
Woohoo! That's good. That is great. Okay, anything else on Vectron?
Gisingus mentioned it, yeah.
Anything else on Vectron?
That's it.
No? Okay, wonderful. Let's move on to the first of the routes that have been announced for post-release of Train Sim World 4, and it's from our partners and our friends at Just Trains. It is Preston-Blackpool-Ormskirk. We are really excited about this one, Matt, aren't we? There was a reason why we chose to announce it during the keynote, because we think it really does the business. It covers a lot of things that we're really interested and really excited about, and it looks great. Obviously, we'll show you some screenshots in a second, but what's your current feeling on the route?
I mean, it comes with the pacer, and it's such a beautiful model, really nicely done. But they've modeled a really good timetable. They've really got to grips with how that works. And just on our private beta discords, the team are avidly taking screenshots using the new photo mode of stuff, and it's just like you can see them really getting into it as well. And so it's it seems like endless awesome shots and visuals as you're driving this route. You've got different routes as well, because you've got the north route and the south route to Blackpool, the line up to Ormskirk and so forth. So there's a lot of different things to do, a wide range of trains to do them on, and a pacer.
Should we show some screenshots?
Go for it.
Okay, cool. Right, let's go then. Because I know that the
Hey.
community were particularly excited about some of the stuff that's shown on here. Just as a quick note, the team at Just Trains have put on their website a few more details. They'll be sharing more bits and pieces as we go through the next few weeks and months. But if they have got quite a lot of layers that they've attached to this route, if you already own other bits and pieces. So if you've got Tees Valley, you'll have the 101 DMU and the PCA and HEA wagons. West Cornwall Local for the C-Cow and Turbot wagons. NTP, so North Transpennine for Class 4 45. Spirit of Steam for the 8F and its respective rolling stock. The BR heavy freight add-on for the Class 40, the Class 31, and the Class 20 as well. So there's quite a lot of stuff that layers onto this. So not all of obviously this that we're showing today will come with the core route, but if you have quite an extensive selection of content or British content already, there is a lot of things that layer onto this.
Yeah, it's got PAS system on there, all sorts of things. Just really, they've done some interesting posters. They're all fictional, fake ones. But there's it's really good. It's a fun ride. It's really good. I like the breadth and variety in the timetable. And of course, your 2 runs to Blackpool as well. So it's BR Blue is kind of my favourite era. It's not the most favourite with a lot of our players, but this is the year I grew up in and had most of my interest in trains. So it's just seeing all this and seeing the noise, and actually one of the things that this fog does, you can see in this picture, is it starts to make the scenes look cold, which is just they start to feeling screenshots. It's really odd.
Yeah, some people asked sort of a similar question to earlier in that will the Pacer be backported onto other routes? Again, same answer as earlier really, in that at the moment there aren't plans, but it's not something that, it might be something that we look at in the future, but certainly not with release.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Okay, anything else on Preston-Blackpool-Ormskirk? Because there will be more information about this when we come to announce a release date for it, and there will be preview live streams. We'll get the Just Trains team on board. We've also sort of hopefully got them onboarded onto our forums now, so they might be able to answer some of your questions. They'll be giving loads and loads of tidbits of information on their own website and their own social media channels as well. So lots to look forward to on that one.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, keep an eye on it as you run up to its release. It's going to be a fun one to watch.
Absolutely. Right. Okay. Well, Cephas asked, small question: how are the physics of the Pacer? Because they're a bit bouncy. I would imagine they have simulated every bounce.
So I know that one of the suspension mode is a little bit behind where it needs to be, and I know that the person doing the simulation of the Pacer has started doing the physics of the suspension, and is probably going to take a pause from it for a bit until get some stuff done, because it's slightly different, because being a 2-axle thing rather than having bogies, I think it's introduced some additional challenges which are being worked on as well. So yeah, this one's going to be really interesting to drive.
Jason said cab sway set to 200%. It's going to be an interesting one.
Oh yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's what we're calling sort of obviously the routes and the trains that are coming with Train Sim 1.4. But let's park that for a little bit and let's talk about some of the core features. Again, same kind of rules apply as before. If you've got questions for things, we expect there's probably going to be more questions about this sort of thing than maybe the routes. Chuck them in the chat. We'll try and cover as many as we can do as we go through. But we'll try and sort of whiz through these as much as we can do and provide you with as much top level information as we can do. Again, most of these will give you a little bit more information about as we go through the next few weeks leading up to September the 26th or 21st, depending on which version of the game you've got. So let's start with the big one, shall we? Let's start with the editor, because I think that was a little bit of a surprise for everybody. I saw the chat reaction when we announced it. I think I was sitting on a plane just as they were turning on the seatbelt sign, and I was like, "Oh God, I need to see this! I need to see this before we set off on the flight." And I did, and everyone went wild, and it was brilliant. But Matt, I mean, I don't want to sort of reiterate what we were talking about in the announce stream too much, but can you give us a quick summary of what the editor is and what the editor might mean for Train Sim World 4 players as we go through?
Yeah, so the editor is an external application. It's installed from the Epic Store, but it'll work with, if you've got the game on Steam or Epic, it'll work with the game. You don't have to buy the game on Epic Store to use it. It just has to be, because it's an Epic editor, it has to be distributed via the Epic Game Store. So it's all good. Once you've got that, it also means it keeps itself updated as we do new versions nice and easily as well. Once you've got that, you can then pretty much, I mean, this is our editor, essentially. And you'll be able to make routes, make trains, you better make wagons, coaches, scenarios, service mode timetables. You name it. You should be able to make anything. Now, if it's if what you want to do is extend something, change something, that's when things start getting a bit strange, because you'll have access to one of the things that's taken a long time to do with this version of the editor is make it to where you can load cooked content into the editor. So you'll be able to load the maps and fly around the maps and see them in the editor. And the Unreal Editor doesn't really support that by default. It's not supposed to be loading cooked data. It's supposed to be loading source data. That's like loading an executable file into your tool, your editor, your notepad, and hoping it would make sense. So we've been able to make that work with routes and with trains, which means that even the play-in editor function works. So if you're making scenarios or service mode gameplay, then you can just hit the play button at the top of it, and it will load it straight into the editor window right there, and you can play it, which means you can debug it. So if you're making your own trains as well, then you'll obviously be able to make your own semigraph to go with your trains, and use the semigraph debugging tools to analyze what's going on and log what's going on, see what the performance is, make changes, step through your blueprints. All that stuff will be there. So you'll be able to, make a wide range of content. But like I said, editing content. So this would be things like extending routes, changing a route. Someone I saw on the forums talking about adding extra crossings in certain parts, and adding scenery. Now, adding scenery, there might be some options there, because adding scenery, not changing or deleting, but adding scenery, the game has a system called scenery tiles where we can add layered scenery tiles on. So you could potentially do that. This is one of the things we want to find out. And of course, we've no idea what modders will figure out what they can do. They'll be like, oh yeah, if we do these things, you can do anything you like. So we'll be, we've not specifically locked anything from being possible. And if people come up with great ideas that we can bring in and take on board, then we're certainly going to be up for doing that. We want to know when you use the editor, what you want, what you're trying to do with it, how can we help you really make that better, and then we'll start looking at that stuff. But it's fabulous tool that allows you to just, there's nothing you can't do if you put the effort into it. It is not an easy tool to use. Yeah, this is the Unreal Editor. This is a professional game development tool. Be prepared to spend some time learning. But if you do that, the reward is the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing is here, there are certain limitations, I guess, to the technical side of things, but we've not locked anything off specifically. We haven't locked anything off. There's a few kind of, I guess, technical limitations that come with the way that certain things have been produced or anything like that. But if players have been able to find a way around it, or they are able to do so, they are able to do it, right? Is
absolutely. If they can, someone said it's not locked, so does that mean uncooking is possible? I'm not aware of that actually being a thing. Let me just explain what cooking does. So when you design, let's go with a blueprint, which is where you have boxes and lines on a drawing. That contains all sorts of data which is only needed for the editing of it. So what color is that box, and what XY coordinates is it in, and all that kind of stuff, which is completely irrelevant and unneeded when you're at the runtime version of the game. You don't need that stuff filling up your memory. So the cooking process will take anything which is not necessary to run the game and strip it out, so that it's making the most optimal use of memory that it can do. What that means then is when you then load this stuff into the editor, or when you look at it in the editor, it's just not got the data there to do that with. Now, I know that there are unofficial tools which can let you try and piece this stuff back together again. We're not going to be looking at that stuff, but if the community come up with their own way of recreating things, then hey, have at it. But yeah, uncooking is a process I'm not aware you can do with Unreal files. But hey, if you find a way to do it, then yeah, again, we're not stopping you.
Yeah, I mean, we've got as you can imagine, there's quite a few questions. So Harley Robinson's asked, can you use PC Editor on the PC if you bought it from the Microsoft store? That's a good question.
I am not anticipating that to work. Certainly, it won't work on day one. We've done some work to see what we could do, but the Microsoft version, we're struggling to find the API calls that we need to find the files, even in where Microsoft installed them. Whereas via Steam, it's much more straightforward, and Epic, it's much more straightforward. The Microsoft is not quite going the same way. Now, we're going to keep looking at that. So I'm not going to say never, but certainly at launch, I don't see the Microsoft Store being supported.
Okay. So a couple of questions about things like, because obviously this is a PC editor, this is the beta of this. You're going to help us sort of find our way through this as much as I think we're going to help you find your way through this. And that, I think, is we're going on a journey with you all, and I think at the beginning part, what we're not going to say is you're going to be able to turn around and you're going to be able to make a fully fledged route within the first 2 to 3 months. We think that's probably unrealistic. I mean, challenge accepted if there's anybody in the chat that wants to do it, but it's quite a learning curve to get over. And I think when we announced in the live stream that, say for instance, the shareability of that content for console users was going to be probably a little bit further down the line, there was a bit of disappointment, and the fact that it wasn't available for consoles. And again, you've kind of highlighted, Matt, a little bit of the reasons why that might be the case when we're talking about the Microsoft Store. But in terms of sort of longer term plans for the editor, what are we thinking? Are we thinking that we want to try and incorporate that shareability for all players? Do we want to incorporate it into Creators Club? What's the longer term plan for this?
So the longer term plan is definitely to try and get to that point. My vision for the editor was that you press a button having made your great content, and it would then upload that stuff to Creators Club, and then other people would be able to download that stuff, much like you would do in any other tool. It'd be a nice, easy, straightforward process. The reality is, as always, a lot harsher and more pointy than that. There are a number of challenges. One of which is Unreal offers you this magnificently powerful blueprinting system. It's a way of programming. It's a scripting system. And because it's different to other games which maybe host something like a Lua programming environment, because you can really constrain what that can do. Blueprint system could do anything, and we really can't stop it doing anything, which means people could write malicious stuff. So we need to, before we think about sharing people's content, we need to find out how we protect it and make sure that that the content is safe for everybody to use, and what we would think about that. So that's a hurdle we've got to figure out. And then there is like the sizes of these files. How do you then cook? So you can only cook content. An Xbox can only run content cooked for an Xbox. And if you are not an Xbox developer, as registered with Microsoft, you cannot cook Xbox content. So that would all need to be done here. So then there's how do you manage that process? So there's a number of complex problems and potentially big scalable problems that we need to think about and work out how we get down that path. So definitely thinking about it, strongly want to do it. I've always thought that the whole point of doing something like this is to include everybody in it. But we don't want to hold the editor back because we haven't answered all of the problems yet. The editor, the sooner we get it out, the sooner people start learning to use it. Look at all of the third parties we've had and how long they have spent getting their first route out and becoming familiar with it. And it's not a fast journey. It takes a while to get the hang of it, to understand the nuances and release and create the great content that third parties are developing. And everybody else is going to go on that journey as well. So we'll help you as much as we can, and we'll put tutorials and guides out based on the common questions that are coming up. We'll do streams where we'll show stuff happening, and then it's over that time, and then we just keep you up to date on where we're at. And full disclosure, full open transparency, that may end up coming to a point where we say it can't be done. But we're not going to let that go without trying our hardest. So we are going down that line, and we're going to see where we get to, and we'll let you know, and we'll keep you as part of that journey.
Yeah, and I think like longer term, we've seen a couple of people ask about sort of distributing the things they've made, and like how do I become part of the partner program and all of that kind of stuff. Actually, I guess, Matt, what's your kind of vision for that? Because again, if we're thinking longer term, we would love we would love the editor to kind of bring in and blood the next generation of Train Sim World partners for the partner program. We've got a load of really great partners already, but we would love to have more where we could share the work that they've been doing with everybody. So what's kind of the how would a player say if they've been sort of learning the tools, they've been divvying up on it, and they have got to a point where they're like, you know what, I think I've got something really good here. How would they approach someone like yourself or anybody else in the team to try and see if they can make that a reality?
I mean, there's two ways people can distribute the stuff they do. One of them is to just package it up and give it to their mates, the same way the community would do anyway. Free distribution, certainly, you can do what you like with it. Yep. And the other option is you come to us and say, hey, look, I've made this cool thing, or I'm going to make this cool thing. We have a team dedicated for looking after third parties, and they can help you through that process and review what you've done, maybe give you some feedback on it, and then take you on how do we get this on all of the platforms? At that point, it obviously becomes then, now we're looking at all of the platforms, and that's probably early days. That's how the people who are making stuff, so if someone makes a cool wagon or a cool loco, we figure out how we can turn that into something which can then go onto the stores, and then it goes onto all the platforms. So that's how you get stuff onto Xbox, PlayStation, so forth in the earlier days. So it's kind of like looking at what the options are. Absolutely encourage potential third parties and people who are having fun with the editor to get in touch with us, because for me, and I've worked with third parties since day one of joining the company. I used to be the head of third party. And for me, it's always been exciting, the variety and diversity of content that the third parties bring to the party. You've got people from all over the world, different walks of life, who've got different interests and so forth, creating their favourite obscure tramway, or this narrow gauge railway over there. Please, someone make a narrow gauge railway.
But you make a good point, Matt, because sorry to interrupt, but like we always get met like. There isn't a social post that we post that goes by without somebody saying, I want Shinkansen, or I want something that is actually like that we don't have the source material for, or that we don't have the knowledge in house to be able to create or develop, but somebody who lives in that country and is able to experience it every day might have a much better way of being able to do that. So actually, this is a potential way in the future for that kind of thing to become a reality in a much more kind of sustainable way than us. I don't know. I mean, we do source material trips to Metrolink, but it takes a lot more to create a route from a country that we've never done before, but someone who knows it and breathes it would be much better placed to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very exciting way forward, and yeah, I don't hold back. It's doesn't matter how obscure. It doesn't matter. Is this a product Dovetail would make? I don't care. If you've made something cool, there'll be people out there that want to play it. Yeah. So come and talk to us, and we want to help you learn the tools so that you can get better at it, and you'll have fun with that process. And if great stuff comes out of it that other players can enjoy, then we can have that conversation. So there's, do talk to us.
Yeah, and I think what we'll do is, so a lot of people have asked, how would I contact you? And off the bat, I don't have a response right now, but I think there is a part of we're onboarding, not we're onboarding, we're telling you how to use the editor on release. We might have a check-in a couple of months down the line, because again, what we don't want to do is we don't have a lot of people email us on day one saying, I want to create XYZ thing, and then they realize, for instance, actually that the tool itself is more advanced than they thought it was. We want people to have kind of made a certain level of progress and a certain level of capability before they contact us with ideas and thoughts. So having kind of a prototype or not portfolio, but like a prototype and some examples of what you're creating would be really helpful. And we'll check in and we'll say, well, actually, if the players that are submitting and circulating really interesting stuff, well, here's an email address to contact us on, for instance, rather than it being sort of opening the gates on day one.
Yeah, we'll come up with a process which anyone wants to message me in the meantime just for back and forth, then they're more than welcome to do that. But there'll be a proper process for introducing yourself and so forth, and then and that's when the third party team will take it on. So, but before then, there'll be discussion areas where everybody, including the third party team, will be there helping you out. We've got a technical advisor in the third party team who understands the game inside and out, and the editor inside and popping out who can provide some assistance as well.
We'll have a sub forum, I think, as well as the plan to talk about. It might be in the creation center, it might be a separate sub forum for the editor, but we'll have a space where people can communicate, share best practices. We can put loads of resources in, and people can start to collaborate on things as well. Because again, this is the other thing. Like, someone might find that they're really good at creating trains or a particular part of a train, but they need somebody else's help to be able to do something else. And this, again, allows that kind of collaboration. And we've seen it with TS Classic releases, where third-party developers kind of then team up because they know that they're good at a certain particular area, but perhaps they need a little bit of help with other things, or to save a bit of time as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the Western Lines of Scotland always stands out in my memory. It was one of the products I helped publish, and there were countless developers in the community, other people all just clubbed together and contributed their expertise, whether it's to scripting or physics or signaling, or the Keith who built the route, one other third party contributed some rolling stock, somebody else contributed liveries and reskins, and it's just everyone contributed their best skills to it, and the end result was this stunning combination of everyone's work. So as one of the things I would encourage is, don't try and do everything yourself. There's too much there. Find a team, find people that work together, and or that can work well with you, and between you you'll find that you can do some amazing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna have to move on from the editor, as exciting as it is, but I've got one more question for you, which is from Pessy, but I've seen other people mention it as well in the chat. In terms of the assets that are going to be available on day one for people to utilize and to create, again, this is an iterative process. There's going to be things that perhaps we can implement and we can add as we go through. But on release, what is there going to be to be able to kind of, I guess, support people who are coming into this for the first time from a assets perspective?
So you'll be able to use the assets that are on the routes that you've got. So if you make a new route, you'll be able to call upon assets that are in the routes that you own. At this point in time, I don't think we'll have any source asset packs available on launch. Part of the reason is we want, let's see what people are doing and what is the most value. There's no point us making an asset pack and these are not the things that people want to see. Here's a great pack of trees. Don't care. I can use all the trees over here. What was that for? So where is the most value that we can provide support for, and then we'll do that. It shouldn't take long to create these little asset packs. So and we don't know how we distribute them yet, because they can't really go via Steam. There's no way for them on Epic. So there's logistics to solve about this stuff. But you'll be able to achieve quite a bit before we even think about that stuff.
And people can import their own custom assets, right? As well.
Oh yeah.
So if you're sort of a fan of Blender, I know Alex in my team has done a couple of Blender streams in the past where he's tried to create a few bits and pieces. I think we'll probably do some more related to the editor. But you can import your own assets as well. There are particular file types they need to be. I guess this is all things that we'll have when we get to the the launch window, in terms of helping players over that hurdle.
Yeah, well, Unreal supports FBX file format, which is a pretty standard format, and Blender supports it beautifully as well. So actually the import-export process, it works both ways. One of the things that's really cool in Unreal is to say you've modeled some track, and you've got track going across the top like a bridge would be there. You can export the terrain and you can export the track as a 3D model, import that into Blender, build your bridge in your nice detailed Blender environment, and then just extract the bridge back out and place it into your route. So actually it's a bi-directional process, and it works really well with Blender, obviously with Max. If you look at Unreal, obviously everything that Unreal supports, this will support, because it's Unreal.
Yeah. Just one more question before we jump on. I know we said that 3 questions ago, but obviously licensing is a thing within TSW4, and there are certain sort of things that we have to adhere to as developers of routes that are going for commercial sale from those licensors. If I'm a player creator and I want to create a Siemens loco, or I want to recreate the 800 or something like that for East Coast Mainline, are there any sort of things I should be concerned about or worried about, or because it's not coming for kind of anything commercial at that stage, is it fine?
So I'm not a lawyer, so I'm probably going to walk away from that question.
Right. I do realise I've thrown you a massive hand grenade there, but
what I would advise is, if you come to us for third-party distribution, we have a team that look after this stuff, and we'll make sure it's all good. And if you do it yourself, then get advice from someone who is qualified to give you advice. All I will say is my understanding of copyright law and so forth is, unless you've been given permission, you don't have permission.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah, I mean, if it were me, what I would say is, yeah, get first of all, get advice, but before you delve too deeply into something, I would say perhaps branding and licensing is one of the last things to think about when you're creating something like this. But if you're looking for a bit of assistance or help, and again, if you've contacted us and we're happy to kind of bring you through that process, we do have an internal licensing team that have relationships with our licensors, but also can reach out to people and see if there's anything that we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. They work. One of the licensing team worked really hard, going through the routes and looking at logos. Like, for example, the British Rail logo that you saw in a few screenshots there on the Preston route. The BR logo again used in some of the posters. Every one of those has to be screenshotted and sent over for approval. So it's, all of these things, and we do that for you as part of, that's one of the things we do as part of the third party. And it's because every usage of a license also, the license to use something just says you're good to go for it. You then have to then re-approve every individual usage of that to make sure they're happy with it. And sometimes you will get detailed feedback. We in one case, I think when we did the TGV, they sent us the 35-page document of feedback on the TGV, which is absolutely brilliant. You think, oh my God, so much to do. But wow, they really paid attention to this. They were so into it, and they picked out so many details. Railpool sent us a massive load of detail, but they said on it, right, this is all really nitpicky, but you've got it so good, it feels wrong to not get these other things right. And so we dug into it, and this kind of stuff that you get back. And again, our team manage all that for you.
Yeah, you can. I mean, again, like the world is your oyster with this. You can create trains, you can create routes, you can create scenarios, physics, timetables, although timetables we've talked about a few times being perhaps one of the more challenging things to get right.
But you can make one. If you want to do it, you can make one. The tools are there.
So everything you're able to do, again, it's probably going to take you a little bit of time, and what we talked about earlier in terms of having expertise within a particular area will become quite helpful, I think. So yeah,
I'm so excited to see what people do with it, because I know people will take it places we haven't even thought of.
Yeah.
And that's where unbounded creativity will come from.
Someone suggested, I think it was Trucker Steve, can people create storylines with characters? Murder on the Gatwick Express, for example. Joking aside, this could be really cool. So
yeah, well, I mentioned the blockbuster scenario earlier on. That'll give you some hints. It's just the gameplay team are really starting to get to grips with. You've got the full power of a AAA game engine here. You can do anything with it, and some of the things that they're starting to create. So the bits where you walk up to characters like on Peak Forest, and they pop up messages, and you can back and forth and dialogue with them. You've got that as well. You play, and you can do more besides. So this is where you'll come up with things we haven't even thought of, and we'll be learning from you as much as you'll be learning from us.
Yeah. Okay, we are going to finish the editor there then, because we're not going to finish this stream until we're going to do a Matt. It's going to be a 4-hour live stream, this one. So, okay, let's talk. Let's bundle Scenario Planner and Livery Designer 2.0 into. Oh no, sorry, no. Free roam first. That was what I was going to go to next. Free roam, because you mentioned, Matt, that it was one of your favourite things about TSW4. Can you give us a little elevator pitch as to why everybody else should be excited about it?
So what I like about free roam in particular is that I don't have to plan what I want to do. I can just decide the route, jump in the route, walk around the route. Oh, I fancy driving that thing. Let's spawn the thing. Put it there. Boom, train appears. What do I want to put behind it? Let's put some wagons over there, right? And then we'll go and get in the thing. What I want to do with that, I want to go into the map view and I'll put it. You just free flowing it, doing what you want to do. And if you decide that you get to a certain point, you just want to do something different, well, we get out of it. Maybe you despawn that train, spawn another train, or leave it in and go and spawn another train. Do what you like. Because it integrates in with service mode, you can be doing a normal service mode service and just decide, yeah, actually, I should be driving a steam engine right now. And so you let your train go away, bring a steam train in behind it, and chase the train you were just driving in a steam train. It's just, it is unbounded creativity. And I've used that phrase a second time now. But again, the fact that you can just do anything you like, whereas, with creating scenarios, whether you're in the editor or in scenario planner, requires thought and planning and so forth. Whereas this doesn't. You just do it. It just, and I love that. It's really awesome. And like I said, beta testers have been having a lot of fun with just coming up with crazy things. They said, "Oh, I've managed to make everything come to a grinding halt by putting trains everywhere." And said, "Well, great, well done, you. Have fun with that."
Are you talking about also like things like photo opportunities as well, like being able to get the
Yeah.
full sort of suite of, say, the Heritage Loco pack, for instance, around a turntable? Well, you can
Yep.
you can get that done a lot easier than what you would have been able to do it beforehand. So it's a really cool little feature, and I'm sure, as you say, players will find uses for it that we've not even considered yet.
Yeah.
I had a couple of questions that I know had been asked a few times before the live stream. One of which is free roam is available for all of your content. It's
Yes.
it's not just a TSW4 content feature, so it should cover your entire back catalogue. There are some limitations as to what you can and can't do, mainly based on things like train length and compatibility for where you want to place it.
There is no off the rails mode, certainly at the moment. We may look at adding it in the future. There's no off the rails mode, which means if you spawn your Bakerloo train on Sandpatch Grade, it ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, but it looks interesting.
It'll look pretty.
So
We're not stopping you to do anything. Whether it works or not it will be largely down to reality and how it would have worked in reality.
I think Lucas, I can't remember if he said this on the actual stream or not, but basically said that he really loves chaos. And
He does.
This will
It's
be
his
chaos.
middle name.
This will be chaos.
So yeah, it's really going to be exciting just to see what crazy things people do with it.
Yeah, and you mentioned at the start as well that service modes will kind of integrate within free roam as well. Can you give us a little bit of a description about what that means for kind of a day-to-day on the day?
Yeah, so it is like having AI traffic on your free roam. So the service mode will do what it's doing. You could drive a train in service mode, or start on foot and have the trains running around, and you just decide, I'm on the East Coast Main Line and I want to drive a Jubilee rail tour today, or a Class 33 rail tour today, and you can just spawn your train in, and then you'll be following whatever other trains. I dare say in a 33 you're not going to be following an awful lot. They'll probably leave you for dust, but it's there'll be other stuff going on, and you'll see things coming in the other direction, and it'll just be it'll mix in with the timetable. So it can be quite fun if you get to a certain station and you're like, actually at this point what I want to do is pull over to that yard. So you set the route into the yard, and dispatcher makes you wait because there's a train signal to come in and you have to wait, and then you'll get out and the next train will have to wait because you're in the way. And it's sort of like, this dispatcher will manage all of that stuff. You can throw in new requests, cancel that request, put in a new request, and the dispatcher will mostly keep up as long as you don't try and do anything ridiculous. But this is where kind of the chaos comes in, because you could get yourself into a mess, probably the way that a mess would have happened in reality if you're barking orders at the signalman and the signalman just puts his hand up and says, "I'm done with you."
So there are actually a couple of questions about so Crazy Killer's asking how the dispatcher was handling things, and
Really well, actually.
No red lights in free roam. There will be red lights. There will be dispatcher, as you would have, I guess, in real life, but there is certainly
if you run in what we call free roam, there are no other trains, but there will still be red lights. All the lights default to whatever their default state is, usually a red. Automatic signals go green, obviously. And then you will set the path. The junctions will then set for you, and the lights will then set accordingly. So you'll then drive, and you'll get ultimately the greens up to the yellow, and then the red at the end of the path you've set. In service mode, or timetable mode, you can use the free roam functionality, and obviously the lights are then going to do what they would have done with all the other trains in there. So the difference really is whether or not you want to be on your own, super ultimate freedom, or whether you want to be in and amongst that busy timetable.
Yeah, exactly. A few people are asking sort of, can I choose things like Creators Club liveries, things like that, or
Yes.
sort of Livery Designer livery, so I can choose kind of the certain, like the version of the train that I want as well.
Yeah. When you spawn a train, you can choose the formation that you want to spawn, and you can choose any personal liveries, Creators Club liveries. You can pick all of that stuff.
Sounds great. Any other questions on
Jason's saying, so kind of direct substitution, for example, having a 385 run or 314 stopping service. So it's not intended to allow you to manipulate the service mode. It's intended to allow you to add to the service mode, essentially.
Cool. really interested on this one. I can imagine there being a lot of people having a lot of fun with it.
Super easy to use. It really is super easy. Sifa is asking, I'm curious how you would able to spawn trains and direct them in timetable. Same as in normal free roam mode. You walk up to the piece of track you want, press on PC, you press the tab key, menu comes up with, you press spawn train, menu comes up with your trains, you press the train you want, the color bars appear, you press X, train appears, you get in the train, map view, click on your train, click where you want to go, and drive. Once you get the hang of it, it's really, really straightforward process, and you can just do that over and over again.
And we'll come on to this a little bit later, but Formation Designer also will allow you can use your own formations when that part of when that feature's released as well in free roam mode.
Yeah.
Cool. My cat's had enough, by the way. He's wandered off. I've had two in here tonight. They both disappeared and left me, so that's not great. Okay, let's move on from free roam. Still got a lot to cover. Photo mode, Matt. This is something again that I'm really excited to see what people have done. You've seen some of the effects of what people have been able to do already with photo mode, because how kind of some of the shots that you've seen already have been people that have been taking them in there. So, quick elevator pitch, Matt. Photo mode. What is it? What will it allow players to do?
The biggest and most important feature of photo mode is pausing the game and letting you still move the camera. So you can get that action shot that we've all missed or struggled desperately to try and capture with the flying the 8 camera desperately and then smacking the screenshot button, and it's not quite been satisfying. Whereas now you press the pause button, hit photo mode, and the scene is now frozen. So you can line up, take that shot. That's really the most important feature of photo mode. And then you can just apply different effects to it. And the depth of field effect is proving to be the most favorite, and the rotated one is proving to wind our lead engineer up endlessly. He's threatened to delete the feature because everyone keeps rotating their screenshots.
Let's show some of the examples, shall we? Let's hope that they don't
look
delete
at this. No, they won't delete it. I want to keep it. So yeah, look at this where the blur effect has been added. You've got the grid, 3x3 grid, which is a standard photographer's tool that you can use to help you line your shots up and compose them. And you've got some of the sliders there for that you can see for operating. There's 2 pages of sliders, one for the color and one for the settings. This is the gallery. So you can see all the photos you've taken. This will include all your railfan shots as well.
And all your old shots as well, Matt, won't it?
Yeah, all your original railfan shots will be here as well. Yeah, the ones that were only on the cloud. This is another one taken with it, again, using the blur.
There's a really great one that I think we used in either the keynote, which is just like a desk, and you can see sort of the depth of, it just looks so good. I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, there are some really interesting shots that you can take from the cabs actually, because you've got the contrast in depth, and you can really get some really neat shots using the depth effect. It's these tools, they take a little bit of practice to get the best out of them, but it doesn't take long. There's not tons of options there to play with, but there's enough there for you to find some really interesting shots.
Yeah, and I think what you're seeing with this as well is that it's not necessarily just the hero shot of the train that you're seeing. Lots of people are being really creative with how they're sort of their angles and the approach they're taking. We've seen some of one of the guards in there as well, or they were wearing a fluorescent jacket. I couldn't work out what part of the train they were sitting on from the very quick selection, but they were wearing a fluorescent jacket. But you can see that it just adds a slightly different depth. The way that you can pause it just means you've got that much more control over it. And a couple of questions. NEP class of AC4, I said, will photo mode be available on all routes? Yes. Are we allowed? And Dantech Manify says, are we allowed to use photo mode screenshots in the weekly photo contest? Of course you are. We are hoping that you do so. We're looking forward to seeing what everybody does with the screenshot competitions with this. It's gonna be a game changer. Sifa asks, are there any settings for the colours, like the amount of red, green, or blue?
Exposure, saturation, I can't remember what they are, but there isn't a red, green, blue slider as such, but there's exposure, saturation, and 2 others.
Cool. And then like things like sepia filters, anything like that, people want to do sort of ye olde shots?
Not yet. We haven't got sepia or other things. One of them, obviously, with, I think, saturation, if you dial that down, you'll get black and white. This is kind of a a starter. This is a really interesting feature. There's lots of cool stuff in it, but there are lots of ways we can take this forward. So interested to see what people want in the way of filters and what they want to be able to do with it and what impact that will have as well. Because there's, you're pausing a real 3D world here, so there might be some really fun stuff we can do, with before it becomes a screenshot.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Anything else photo mode, Matt? No. Okay. I said scenario planner and livery designer and then completely forgot about them. So let's go back to livery designer and scenario planner, because once you've created your photo, you can upload it then when you upload your livery designer and your scenario planner screenshots. See what I did there? Seamless. Scenario Planner 2.0, we know how much players have been looking forward to this. Just going to quickly give a quick bullet point summary of the things that we are changing and actually, or adding, I guess. Some of them are available for TSW4 only content, and some of them are available for all content. Matt, I'm going to need your help with that one. So, custom start times.
All content.
All content. Weather selection.
All content.
Introduction text to a scenario.
That's all content.
Cool. Chaining paths.
Mixed. So in some cases where paths have been built, that chain. So the key thing here is if you've got no paths that actually start and end at the same place, they can't chain. So Southeastern High Speed has paths that start and end, so you can drive into St Pancras and back out of St Pancras. We've done that several times in the testing. But some of the routes don't have that. They start on one platform and they end on the other platform when they come back, which means you then can't chain them together. So obviously all TSW4 content going forwards will have a more complete set of paths. Previous ones, try it and find out. It's the feature's there to use, but if the paths aren't there in a way that makes them join up, then you won't see any other options.
Yeah, and Blue Games asks, what does chaining mean? Which is a good question, actually, because we've used that quite flippantly, but it just means rather than sort of from going only from A to B, you can go from A to B to C to D, etc.
Exactly. So if you imagine on the East Coastway route, you start at Brighton and you drive to Seaford, you can then that would be the end of a previous scenario planner scenario. Whereas now you could tell the player to change ends and drive back to Lewes, and then change ends and drive to Eastbourne, and change ends and drive to Brighton in one scenario. So the scope and complexity and interest for the scenarios that you can do goes up quite considerably.
Exactly, and as you say, that there will be a certain element of some of these things will be easier to do on certain routes than others. As you can see, the cat is back. But as I say, it will be in from the get-go on TSW4 content. You might have to have a little bit of a play around with other content.
Yeah, on TSW4 content, you shouldn't find any combinations that don't work. You should be able to get to wherever you want to go to from and to. And Vorarlberg is quite interesting because it's got the side branch off as well. But the when it comes to the older content, we didn't make content with this feature in mind because we didn't know about this feature. So you may or may not find paths that work or don't. We don't have any plans to go back and augment those paths. I will say that now. But obviously everything going forwards will be fully supporting chain.
Cool. And same thing. Just the cat is. She is. There we go. Here's Phoebe. She's here. There we go. You get the audio as well. Hopefully you heard that. She wasn't massively happy with that. Okay, so hopefully she will now leave me alone. Portal support for AI. Now this is a TSW4 only feature, right, Matt?
Yes, that's because the paths simply don't exist on the old content. There was no ability to do portals in the old content, so that's it. They're not there. So it's only new content where we're building the paths for the portals. What does that mean? Portals are where trains go into and out of at their extents of their route, and it means that trains can spawn from portals and do their journey and then go into a portal or any combination of them as well. So you don't have to. Previously, every train has to spawn on the route at a marker and a different marker, so you can't spawn multiple trains on the same marker, and that obviously constrains how many AI you could put down quite significantly. Whereas now you can just spawn the trains from the markers and they can run down in the other direction or so forth. So it opens up some possibilities, I think, for what you can do. Perhaps makes it easier.
Cool. I was trying to think. I was thinking of a question then. I'm just thinking of the players. How many AI? Is there a limit to how many AI trains you can have in a custom scenario? Mikey asks.
I don't think that's changed. There is a limit, and I don't think it's changed. It's one of the things that we might look at as a post update is whether or not that can be changed now. But no, there is a limit, and it's the same as it was previously. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah. And good. And Inigo asked a good question as well. When we say TSW4 routes, is Riesa Dresden included in that?
I don't know with this particular case, but there's a lot of upgrades going on with Dresden Riesa. I don't know about the paths. I will find out.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good question because, as I say, that is now, in theory, a TSW4 route.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it would make sense for it to have it in there. I think the final one was more paths, and I think, or more kind of, I guess, locations that you can do what you need to do with as far as scenario plan goes.
TSW4, I think, some of the routes have got hundreds of paths now, so it's kind of like all platforms to all platforms. Whereas, if you looked at some of the previous ones, it was like one or two platforms to one or two platforms. So it's much more comprehensive selection of paths in the TSW4 content that's been added. So yeah, this is what helps with the chaining side of it. So Rob J asked if AI you can use chaining. Yes, it can.
Okay, interesting. All right, that's another level of kind of, I guess, customization then, and we look forward to again seeing how many people utilize this in certain ways. And Creators Club is going to go absolutely wild for the first few weeks after release. Look forward to seeing. I think we're probably going to have to change the featured content pretty much daily on there, I would say. So that's interesting. Transport, again, general TSW4 question. Admin alert. So TSW4 compatible content, which we mentioned earlier, is that available from early access or is it available from day one, which is the 26th of September? It will be the 26th of September. So when we put the early access live, it will be for the core routes for Train Sim World 4. The follow-up question is Dresden Riesa included in that? I believe it is, but I will double check that. I would imagine because of the fact that it's with Vectron, it will be classed as a TSW4 route, but I will double check that for you. Okay, Livery Designer 2.0, again, whistle through the changes. I believe all of these are for all pieces of content, but Matt, please, all content that you own, but please correct me if I'm wrong. So you can now add livery description, undo redo button, which I know is huge. Toggling livery usage. So if you if you don't want a particular livery to appear when you've selected that particular livery on AI, for instance, you can now toggle that on and off. Text entry. Font selection, so we've got a couple of fonts in there.
Two new fonts in the game,
and there might be some that are unlocked using mastery.
I mean, in total, if you've unlocked all the mastery, I think there's 7 or 8 fonts. There's quite a bit to choose from.
And that's mastery that's included in the core game, right? That's not.
No, they're back catalogue. They're in the so like Birmingham introduces a font through mastery, and there's I think Bakerloo might introduce a font. I can't remember, but a number of the routes have introduced fonts as part of their mastery. Okay. So if you've unlocked all of the different mastery fonts, there's I think, like I said, I think in the game in total there's 7 or 8 to play with. So there's quite a lot actually. But if you haven't, then you start off with 3. There's 3 in the base game.
Crazy Killers asked, will the livery update break any current liveries? Don't think we've seen that so far, have we? And also there's a new UI. It's an interesting question actually, not necessarily related to Livery Designer, but UI in general that I wanted to touch on. I was going to ask it later, but it seems like I'll come on. In fact, you know what? I'm going to go a little bit rogue, and I'm going to just go through the rest of the Livery Designer, and we'll talk about UI. So 1,000 layers now as well you can do, which is increased from 300, which is great. And we've obviously talked about the additional operators and the fonts already. The question that I was going to ask you is, I think someone picks up on the fact that you said the UI pretty much hadn't changed between TSW3 and TSW4. Is that the case, or are there things that have changed? Hopefully, again, if people have seen some of the content that we've shared already, you see that the UI has changed to a certain extent.
The UI has changed. What we didn't want to do was change for change's sake. The TSW3 UI was really good, really popular, but there were a couple of things that were wrong with it that made us all scratch our heads afterwards and wonder how we came to such a bad idea. One of the key things was in the TSW3 UI, grayed out means selected. So yeah, us. Well done. Pat on the back there. Well done. Because that's intuitive.
Small
There's a dialog box with a grey button and a white button. Which one are you going to get when you press the A button on your controller? The grey one, obviously. So we fixed that. So the team spent quite a bit of time because it's actually, it feels like, oh, you just changed that, surely. But across the entire UI and being consistent across the entire UI, there was actually quite a bit to do to change that impact, and the team spent the time on that and then implemented it. So that is fixed and gone, and now it's obvious what's being selected. We've also changed some of the dialog boxes so that if it doesn't need a 2-button thing, we can just make it a 1-button with a back button. Then we've tried to make it more straightforward there as well. So there's a number of improvements to the main core, but this is improvements, not start again from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, there was a point where I think people were almost like memeing the fact that new game or new core update means new UI, a new color, and actually I think what we've tried to focus on, rather than sort of maybe something that looks shiny and flashy and whatever, is actually look at what players are actually doing and how they're behaving in the game. So what we're sort of moving away from, I guess, UI, user interface, to UX, user experience. So something that, like, we're seeing players having problems doing something in particular in game. How can we make that easier? And you've seen that perhaps with Livery Designer and Scenario Planner, where we've reworked some of the settings and we've reworked some of the areas. We've added more things to settings menus and toggles and things like that. So we're focused more perhaps on those elements rather than the visual elements to it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we've got a UX expert on the team now, and she's been providing a lot of, UX guidance to how the thing flows and coming up with the design. So there's a lot gone there. But the other thing was that this release had a lot of new UI that needed to be done for the new features, like replacing Scenario Planner's UI, replacing Livery Designer's UI, and so forth. So there was a lot to do without thinking about replacing all the other stuff that was there. So it's like, actually, let's just carry on pushing that user interface out into the other bits that haven't got it, and make everything feel a bit more consistent. And I think that's an area that the UI UX team have actually done really, really nice job on. The feel is very familiar, and it just feels like a polish up on what we've got, plus all the new stuff that's in there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. We talked about Creators Club changes. Big one is that you can now filter by owned content on the Creators Club UI. So that's, again, a nice kind of player experience change rather than perhaps a visual change, but obviously you'll see things differently as well. So that's perhaps a good example of it. Okay. Anything else on Livery Designer or Scenario Planner, Matt?
I think that's it.
Okay, cool. Flibble has asked a question about scoring 2.0. That's what we're going on to next. So we'll cover. I'll grab that and I'll grab that as a question. So Matt, tell us a little bit about why we have changed the scoring system in TSW4.
So let me cover a couple of points on that. So first of all, there was a problem with TSW3 scoring where you couldn't always hit your gold medals, and this is not to solve that problem. Yeah, we have solved that problem separately. So there will be a fix coming which fixes the TSW3 type scoring, so that you earn the appropriate amount of points to achieve your gold medals. So this is scoring 2.0 is not a cover-up way of solving of that issue. That's been dealt with separately. So scoring 2.0 is about, actually, we learned a lot doing the four-way up challenges, aside from bells and switching being particular fan favorites of certain people in the community team. We particularly for looking at some of the team and how they handled passenger services, like and so forth. It's very different driving styles, and how they were getting score awarded to them and thinking, well, that shouldn't have got more points. That was really bad driving. And so what we've done, is what are you saying about my driving?
What are you saying about my driving, Matt?
I guess I deserve that on the chin. So what we've done is there's a number of different rebalancing changes and additions to it. So station stops now earn an awful lot less points. It used to be up to 1,000 points for your station stop, 500 for the accuracy of the stop, 500 for timeliness, and it's now a total of about 300. So it's, I think, 240 and one something for those things. So they are much less important now. If you've got full safety systems turned on and your headlights set correctly, it's more than doubled the number of points that you get and have at risk for your driving standards and driving quality. So if you are misbehaving with your drive, you're losing a lot more points potentially, and there are a lot more points to gain by driving correctly. So, at the crux of it, those two changes, I think, should make it to where you are rewarded for better driving, and if you're a little bit late, it's not a problem. If you drove well, you'll gain more by doing that. We've added a few different things just to keep you on your toes, like having your wipers on in the rain, there's the other one I mentioned there with the safety systems on, and people have said they want to earn more points if they're driving a more difficult journey. If you're driving a German train with safety systems turned on, even if the safety system never does anything, you're still more aware of what's going on, paying attention to what's going on, because it might do something. So it still makes a difference to your journey and how you've done it, and has been a more difficult drive. So it's not just a question of scoring based on the number of times it goes off. That's not right. You're actually more into it and paying more attention the entire journey. So just having the safety system on is enough, because if stuff was happening, it would be doing its job. However, not everybody wants to learn safety systems. Not everybody wants to get to that level. And what we didn't want to do was suddenly make the game feel inaccessible and turn players off from that, because we've tried to make it maybe elitist or something. So what we've done is we've added a new medal, the platinum medal, and the idea is that we've rebalanced these scores now so that if you did what you did previously and did a good job without safety systems, you are still getting your gold medal. And that's not to say that it's an easy gold medal necessarily. It's still going to get you that gold medal, though, if you do what you're doing before. Maybe drive, let's not do quite as much overspeeding to keep to the times, though. You can drive a bit more realistically. But if you turn the safety systems on, then because of the extra score that you're getting from having the safety system on, then you're able to achieve a platinum. Now, it could make gold easier to get to because you're earning more, but then you might get more emergency brakes. You might get more, if you're not doing the safety systems correctly, it might actually make it harder to get scores. So it's actually an interesting challenge, an interesting variety on the scoring system. So again, we're looking forward to seeing how that how that actually gets, what the reaction is from players. That scoring system is for TSW4 routes and later, because we have to build it to that scoring system. So I think that's basically the summary. It's a Matt summary.
Yeah, so there's a few questions about this in the chat. I think one of them is, what defines a safety system, and how does that work? Is it sort of, if you have it, because there's a formula obviously involved in how we get to a score, but there are things like multipliers and things like that that will happen if you're enabling safety features. What do we mean by a safety system?
So safety systems are what you get by, on a keyboard, pressing Control Enter and Shift Enter. So in your UK train, it's AWS and driver vigilance. In your German train, it's PZB and CIFA. I can't remember if LZB is included or not. It might be. AFB obviously is not, because it's not a safety system. So it's in American trains, like if there was a future American train with access on it, thinking of that, then that would be an example of that kind of thing. But so in the case of the Antelope line, it would just be the alerter, because there is no other safety system on there. So that's what we mean by safety systems.
Okay. And so we've talked about using emergency brake, and that will dock you points. Obviously, that's triggered by safety systems. But if you were to brake harshly but not go on to emergency brake, would that also penalise you at all, or is it?
I need to check. It's supposed to be. Have got something in there. We've been looking at heavy braking, but what we've been finding is that it's been a bit too harsh. Because actually train drivers brake heavily if they have to, and they shouldn't be penalised for it. So what we're trying to do with it is make it to where flying into the station, maxing out the brakes, skidding to a hole, shouldn't be what you're doing. So it's we're thinking about, that's kind of the ambition for that one. I don't know where we got to in terms of ultimately, because we've just recently, in the last day or so, been reviewing some of these scoring factors, and heavy braking was the one that came under quite a lot of concern about whether it was appropriate. So that may or may not actually have made it into the final builds.
Yeah. Okay. And we've talked quite a lot about using safety systems. How much tutorial content is there in game related to safety systems?
None at the moment. So we have no tutorials for the safety systems, same as we've had none previously. So this tutorializing safety systems is something we're still trying to get heads around, and they're complex subjects. And we want to get that right, and I'm not sure how we do that at the moment. Whether we play videos or whether we do that somehow by in-game. So, no, at the moment there's no tutorials for that.
Okay. I think that's scoring. What I think probably the easiest way for us to be able to show what scoring's all about is actually by doing a route and by showing it in practice. So we'll be doing that as part of the suite of live streams that we're doing, and we'll probably highlight a couple of occasions where things perhaps don't go to plan. Who knows? Matt might not drive it particularly brilliantly well, and we'll get to see some of this stuff in action. But we'll get to see that in action. You can kind of make your own sort of judgments on those. But I think the only other thing was things like improper horn use and whatnot. Do you get penalised for that at the moment?
No, you don't, because what improper horn use means is different in different places. Tracking 14Ls and so forth in America is not trivial. So no, we haven't done anything related to horn usage or anything like that. Someone said about headlights. Yeah, the headlights should always be on. So you will, and you get a few extra points. It's not much, but it's a little bit. Every quarter of a mile, you'll get a few points on if your headlights are set correctly. We never take points away. What we do is we don't give you as many. Or if you do really bad, we just don't give you any while you're doing really bad. So if you're, same as currently, if you go a little bit over the speed limit, we only give you half points. If you go way over the speed limit, we couldn't give you any points. So that's still true. But now there's more to lose, essentially,
It's going to be
by
interesting.
not gaining points.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, a few people have asked about things like 4-up challenges and stuff like that. I think we've obviously not done any for a little while, and there are many reasons for that. But it'd be interesting to see how those 4-up challenges go with the new scoring system.
Yes, I think it'd be very good to see that. The last thing on the new scoring system, by the way, is that we've changed the debriefing screen at the end, thing that gives you the speed graph and so forth. So the speed graph now will contain little icons that say this is where you oversped, this is where you did this. So you'll get these are along the graph. You can see a bit more about the events that have gone on, and then there's a score breakdown sheet on there as well, so that you can actually see how the score was made up.
Yeah. Okay.
So a bit more. You can learn a bit from that as well. So, and that's been the Beta forum users have been quite enjoying that.
Okay. Awesome. Let's talk about ease of access, player assists, that kind of thing. Obviously, we went to a fair amount of detail on the announce live stream on these, so there will be ones that we cover in a bit more detail than others on this stream tonight. But again, we'll aim to show some of these during the preview live streams anyway. Again, you can see them in practice. I've got a few screenshots to share with you today, so you can kind of get an idea for some of this stuff. But I guess by ease of access, player assists, we mean how do we make Train Sim World 4 as playable for as many different types of players as we possibly can do, whether you are an expert at the game and you've been playing train simulators for 15 years or longer, or you're coming into this fresh, or you're you're playing with your son or your daughter and you want to teach them the ropes, but you also want to make sure that they're not sort of getting overwhelmed with things. Loads of different use cases of this kind of thing. We want to try and make sure we're covering as many bases as we can with this. So there's a few things that we'll be doing with Train Sim World 4, and again, I'm going to go through a list, and Matt, will you feel like you want to talk a little bit more about them, then just interrupt me and let me know. So difficulty rating for new or for trains within the game, and I think for scenarios, I know we do scenarios already, but there's a bit more of a detail on the scenarios difficulty rating, so players can kind of get an indication quite early if this is something maybe that they should come back to when they're a little bit more experienced, or if they might need to do some more watch a few more tutorial pieces of content or go through a couple of tutorials in game.
We quite often see new players when we watch them on streaming on Twitch and YouTube fall into a trap of, right, I've learned my Electrostar, let's go and drive this German BR143, and have no idea that they're going to be driving something inordinately more complex than the very simple train that they're used to, and they don't understand what they're doing and why it's so hard and why it's different. So just simply putting the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 difficulty rating on each of them, which is the coloured star bars, same as on scenarios, onto trains, just so that I've only ever run a train maybe 1 and 2. That's in the green difficulty range. This one's in the red difficulty range. You can still click on it, but you know what you're doing going into it.
Yeah. Again, I think Cajon Pass I mentioned in the keynote is a good example of this, in that obviously that was the kind of the core route that came with the American route, and was the American route, sorry. But we found that players were really, really struggling to get to grips with it because of the dynamic braking, because it was, I mean, the Loco itself was difficult to operate, but also Cajon Pass is quite a challenging route in itself. And we found there was quite a lot of people that were struggling with that. So if you see a big red bar that says 5 out of 5 difficulty, it might not be, I mean, if you're feeling brave, go for it. But at least you know kind of what you're going into, and this is probably as difficult as it's going to get for you. And maybe actually, if you're struggling with it, try something a bit easier first, and that's probably the better way of going about it. So we've got adding the 323 and the 8F to training centre. So that's that's a passenger loco, and that's a steam loco to training centre, which is good, not just the Class 66 anymore. Adding gates to train controls. Now, Matt, you're going to have to explain this one to me, because I've copied this directly from the roadmap. I've come back from a while off, and I don't remember this being in there before I left.
So gates to train controls. Let's take the Javelin as an example. On the Javelin, on the power brake controller, if you're in power, and you press the D key or the down button on your controller, and the lever moves towards 0. And neutral, and then it moves towards brake. And you want to do lots of braking because you've just realised you're supposed to have been stopping at this station. Someone tells me anyway. But you're braking so much that you slip into emergency brake. And now the train is bleeping, and you can't figure out how to release the brakes, and you've just got into a mess. Now, if you know what to do to release the emergency brakes, you just go, silly me, and you release the brakes and off you go. But if you just literally put the train back into neutral and try and put throttle on, it won't release the brakes. Wouldn't it be nice if it just didn't let you go into emergency brakes quite so easily? So what happens with these gates is that anytime the lever can go into a bad place, it will stop, and it won't let you go past it unless you release your button and reapply the button. So you make a conscious decision to go into that state. It doesn't make it take any longer particularly to do it. You just get to the end and release and repress it, and it'll go straight in. And for emergency brake, there's a button for emergency brake anyway. So, but there's a number of places where people have had a problem with this in the past. One of them was on the Caltrain 40, I think it was, the 40 PX2 car, where if you move the throttle lever down below 0, in the reality and in the game, there's an engine shut-off position. So lots of people would rock up to their first station, wind the power down, put the brakes on and stop, and think, it's a bit quiet. Oh, well, release the brakes, throttle does nothing. And starting an American loco again is a non-trivial process. So wouldn't it be nice if, again, holding it down to 0, if you want to stop the train, release the button and reapply it to get it to do that. And that's the idea of the gates. It's just to make that stuff a little bit less easy to do by mistake. Yep.
And I just realised I was muted for that entire anecdote, so because I was drinking some water beforehand. But basically, I go into emergency brake a lot. Great help for me. Thank you very much. Okay, minimal HUD. I've actually got a picture for this one. So Matt, tell us a little bit about this is going to be a slideshow, so there will be some other things that come up with it, unfortunately. But minimal HUD. Tell us a little bit about it.
So minimal HUD is inspired by looking at particularly some of the other train simulators that are out there and thinking, how can we make it so that you can know what you're doing? So what if you're thinking about turning the HUD off so that you're present in the cab? How do you? What do you need to know to still be able to drive with that HUD turned off? And really, you need to know what you're doing, when you need to be there, and you know when can I close the doors and that kind of thing. So what we did is we focused the mini HUD, which is what you'll see in the top left when it cycles back to the mini HUD, is just objective information. Now you can make it show the speed limit as well, so that you don't have to know the speed limit of a route, and it will show the gradient as well. There it is in the top left. So you got this information, and it turns off the normal HUD on the bottom right. So now your speedometer, your safety systems is all now down in the cab, and you need to know that. You set where your AFB controls, all this stuff, your cruise control is all going to be in the cab, and you need to be looking at that stuff. But your objective information is in the top left. The other thing that it does is it gets rid of the numbers spinning to zero. So I do this a lot, and it's a really bad habit, a very lazy habit to get into, of just driving and following the numbers. You're almost paying no attention to what's actually going on in the environment. You're just watching the number get down to a point, set the lever to a thing, wait for the number to get to a point, put the lever to a different thing, and then wait for it to say it's time to close the doors again. So it's kind of taking the actual immersion of being present in the cab away. So what we've done here is you see the vertical barber pole there, and what that will do is as you drive this train forward and you head towards your first stop, it'll do nothing. When you get to within 1 kilometer of your first stop, it will change to an orangey color and start going down. So you get effectively a 1 kilometer countdown to your next thing. So you don't need to route learn. This is the key thing. You do not need to spend the time route learning. I don't want anyone thinking, oh, I'm afraid of this because I don't know that I haven't got time to learn the routes. I don't have time to learn the routes. So you get a warning, but you're at sea for all of the other time. So you will spend more time, and I've found this myself already. I'm paying more attention to what's going on. I'm watching the train dials more. I'm looking out the window more. I'm kind of thinking, I bet that's going to start ticking down any minute. Yep, there it is. Right, on with the rate. So you're starting to already naturally learn the route because it's forcing you to pay attention. You haven't got all of these crutches that you can lean onto and hold onto that are numbers spinning down. So mini HUD is exceptionally good at that. And I would try and encourage everybody to have a go with it. It's actually the default. If when you create a profile, you say you're an expert. That is the default standard now for that.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So we've also, when it spins back to it, you'll see that on the top right there is a new readout called the track monitor. So you see there it says 2 kilometers, and you've got the line and the green dots, the signals, and then the 90 is an upcoming speed limit. So all of your upcoming speed limits and signals for the next 2 kilometers are shown ticker tape style on that. So that will scroll as you're driving along. So one of the big bits of feedback that people have always wished they could see more of is more than one speed limit ahead, more than one signal ahead, because it can happen, and does happen in railways, where you'll be driving along at, say, 200 kilometers an hour, and the next speed limit is 160. The one after it's 20, and it's only just a little bit further beyond. So you should be braking for the 20, not for the 160. But you have no idea about that because you can't see it, because we only showed you one speed limit. Now you'll see however many there are in the next 2 kilometers, so you can see all of that information. So, and again, you can turn that off completely if you want to lose that information. It's all separately controllable. There's a bunch of new settings for influencing this stuff. We've also, so that's what we call the mini HUD, and then you can change that same setting to off, which turns all of the HUD off. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, I could do that already with the F1 key. The problem with the F1 key is that you lost all the tooltips for what the controls were doing when you moved throttles and so forth. And that was one of the bits of feedback we had was, I wish we could keep the tooltips but lose everything else. Well, that's what the off setting now does. It allows you to do that. And then you've got the simple setting, which is like the original speedometer on the bottom right, but without the brake settings and the safety settings. So it's just the round bit of the HUD and then tucked over onto the right-hand side. So it takes up less space.
So I guess then you've got, if I'm counting rightly, kind of 4 options if you want to.
Yeah, you got off, simple, normal, and mini.
Yeah. Okay.
So you've got a range of options where you can customize your thing. Along with, do you show the in-world objective markers? You can still show the upcoming signal, upcoming thing. You've got the new track monitor, so you can customize that display every which way you like now.
Yeah. And is that for all content, that HUD available, or is it?
Yes,
Yeah.
all content.
Okay.
Yeah, all content.
And there was an image that was passing by as well, which was sort of had the beginner mode and all that kind of some of the options for customizing things and bits and pieces. One of the things that we did mention is when you start Train Sim World 4, you get the chance of saying beginner, intermediate, I can't remember, beginner, intermediate, expert, essentially, and that will give you a slightly different experience when you first go into game. But all of these things that we're going to be talking about, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but they're all customizable in the settings menu.
Yeah, so we make a recommendation when you import your profile. We make a recommendation based on what your level is. You are welcome to ignore that recommendation and do as you wish. And the implications of that recommendation or that choice, you can then customize and tune however you want. So whatever settings we've defaulted to based on you clicking expert. If you're like, well, I want expert, but I want to turn it back on. I don't like the minimal HUD. I want to go back to the normal HUD. You could just go into settings and change that. So we're not sending you down anywhere you don't want to go. We're just trying to give you defaults we think would be appropriate and you'd enjoy, and then you can customize it. So one of the other settings screenshots that came up there talked about the automatic setting of junctions and the automatic coupling and uncoupling. And some of you may well feel that that's not an assist, that's just making it more realistic, because if you're moving a train in a yard doing shunting and switching, you're not getting out of the train and adjusting all the points anyway. You're not doing all the coupling. Someone in the yard is doing that for you. So, you may choose to turn that on, even though in expert mode we turn it off. You may choose to turn it back on because it's more realistic and authentic for you. So again, you can do that as well. Automatic yard switching is what it says on the tin. It just will align all the points whenever there's an objective comes up. It sets all the points for you, so you don't have to do it. You just go onto the map view, check the path is where you want. It'll have done it for you. And then the coupling and uncoupling one. If you with American stock, then they have the automatic knuckle couplings anyway. What this does is make all couplings work kind of like a knuckle coupling. So if you've got a European or UK chain coupling, then as you back up to it, it'll just automatically couple. If it's a couple to instruction, they'll couple up. For uncoupling, we didn't want to do that automatically because you might have not stopped quite where you want to do the uncouple. So when you stop, it'll pop up a thing saying, if you want to uncouple now, press a button. If you don't want to, release the brakes, pull forward a bit more, and when you're happy with it, just press I think A on the controller, and the uncouple will happen automatically. And one of the reasons we did that, aside from people might find it more authentic, is again new players totally confused by how you uncouple wagons because it's not obvious how you do that. So again, this makes that go away. You don't have to worry about that.
Jason's asked what the level guidelines are for each kind of recommendation when we kind of dictate by your profile. I assume it's something like level 1 to 10.
So one to 5 gives you the beginner profile, or recommends the beginner profile. 5 to 100 recommends the intermediate profile, and beyond there, Jason, is the expert profile.
We've seen a couple of level 550s and stuff in the chat. Go on, tell us your levels. Go on.
Jason can't remember the last time it was level 550.
Yeah, go on. Let us know what levels you are in the chat. I can't imagine that we're going to have too many that are under 100. But yeah, I mean, all of this stuff is customizable that we're talking about. So if it's not to your cup of tea, it's not to your taste straight away, you can change it within the settings menu. There we go. Yeah, a few over 1,000s. Yeah, exactly.
So someone's saying that if you pick the expert, does it skip the look up, look down? Yes. So beginner puts you through the journey mode for training center straight away, puts you straight into how to learn to look up, look down, look left, look right, and go through the 12, I think, tutorials that are in the training center. Intermediate puts you into the training center, but on a menu so that you can pick what you want to learn. And then expert throws you into the main menu and says, off you go.
Nice little quality of life improvement there as well, I think.
Yep.
Okay. I've got reset train simulation physics in the pause menu.
Mm-hmm. So
explain.
So this is about the semi-graph physics that are inside the train. Sometimes you can get a train just to a point where you've got no idea why, but the blasted thing just won't move. And you're utterly confused by what's going on. You pressing the levers and it's not working, or you can see that the brakes have got themselves in a strange place somehow. One of the places that this can happen, for example, is there is a misunderstanding generally, and it's because of the weird naming, and this is how they're named in reality, of brakes in some locos, where the released state, which you'd think would be for releasing the brakes, actually overcharges the brakes. So you have when I find people that don't know better until they've figured out this is where they're going wrong, is they hold it in the released state until the brakes have come off. What you've done now is destroyed your brake system. It's just not going to work because you've overcharged it so much. You have to wait 10 minutes for it to rectify itself. And what you'll find sometimes is the brakes actually, you might find on your next stop, the brakes don't release properly because of the way they were overcharged and the pressure levels are all out of whack. Previously, you're kind of at a point where you're like, you know what, escape. Give up with this. Now you press pause, reset sim physics, bang, all the simulgraph resets, all the controls reset, and now you can release the brakes and go the way you were going to previously. So it's kind of a catch-all for, I don't know what's wrong here. I mean, we don't even know how much this is going to affect people, but we do know that the release brake overcharge thing is one of the ways that people have ruined a drive. Just what you should be doing there is leaving it in the running state. That will release the brakes naturally and not overcharge them. And these names, despite being very confusing, are what they're called in the train manuals. So it's not misnamed. It's just confusing in the real trains. But that's one of the cases. And there may be other cases as well where you just get a bit confused by it. Just hit that button and see again. And we really want to know actually where that helped you, because that would help us understand more of what's going on, what situation you got into that got you out of it from, so that we can go and pat the people on the back that came up with that idea, but also so that we can try and work out, is there a way we could have helped you not get into that situation in the first place?
F. Layman's asked, does the RVM reset to couldn't stuff get out of sync?
Yes, everything should reset.
Okay.
It doesn't just reset simulgraph. I believe it resets all the controls and everything.
Okay. Cool. Talked about coupling. Player assists. So we talked a little bit about sort of what that means, but we've kind of offered a bit more depth to them. We've offered a little bit, because they are obviously in TSW3, but there is a lot more variety of them now. If something's not working as intended, we'll give you a little bit more advice for it. And again, they can be told.
There should be more of them as well.
Yeah,
it should catch more situations. So essentially, the goal with these assists is, you did a thing, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? So rather than sitting there thinking to yourself, why am I not moving? Why is that throttle controller got a red box around it? Does that matter?
Yeah.
Now when you move the throttle, this happens to me all the time, even now, because I keep forgetting that the driver's cab door in some trains has an interlock on it. So I'll get in the train, I'll sit down, set it all up, off you go, felt tip comes up, shut the driver's door. It just makes it, part of the experience almost, rather than 10 minutes of frustration.
Well, and it's formative as well, isn't it? You won't forget to do that next time round because you've learned how
So
to
unless
do
you're
it.
me.
So, well, I mean, sorry, Matt, you're a bad example, but okay. And then missing a station will carry on to the next one. I know this one got quite a lot of not necessarily laughs, but I think there was a lot of people that I've been there, I've done it, I've done that, I've Nebworthed. What does that mean in real terms, Matt? When I'm driving,
So
I drive past Nebworth, can't be bothered to stop, don't like Nebworth, goes on to the next one.
We have nothing against Nebworth here, folks, but no train stop there. It's official. It's in Train Sim World prior to 4, that situation wasn't handled. So what happens is you miss the platform and you'd be stuck a bit, because depending on what signals are where, you might not be able to reverse back into the platform because there's a red signal behind you. And it might be that you can reverse back into the platform and you're okay, and you can do the lights, but then you can't get a red light to leave the platform again, because you already went into the block and came back out again, and the dispatcher doesn't really cope with that. And a real one wouldn't either. Reversing a train on the main line is something that requires people to shout at you about. You just don't reverse trains on the main line without lots of people agreeing that that's a good thing to do. In reality, you miss a platform, in most cases you carry on. And so that's what happens here. If you miss the platform now, we fail the objective, which means it will fall onto the next objective, and you will then get instruction for your next thing. Now, you're missing out all the points for that stop, and so there is a natural penalty for missing it. But what it means now is your journey isn't ruined. So you can just carry on and you can laugh at yourself. And if you're streaming, everybody else can laugh with you
Yep.
/ at you, and
No
you can
comment.
finish the run. It just doesn't. Where previously it kind of ended the run, but what was really confusing and annoying and frustrating for players is you didn't know that it ended the run. You were in this weird state of there's no new objective to come up, so I got to the next station and nothing happened. I tried to go back and I got red light, so then I couldn't go forward and press escape. Now the game will actually has a flow for that, which means that you can naturally complete what you're trying to do. So it's just fixing that little weakness.
Okay. Sounds good. And last one is consistent key mapping. Now, obviously, that's a kind of accessibility thing. I assume it will help rail driver content as well. What do
Shouldn't
we mean
really
by
affect rail driver content particularly. What we've done is, and this is talking to a few people that suffer from conditions that mean that they find using a mouse for anything more than the most brief moment, or using joysticks, difficult, uncomfortable, or impossible. And what they want is everything on the keyboard. And it sort of brought home to me the importance of, as an able-bodied person, I'm privileged that I got the ability to use everything, and I hadn't appreciated just how important that keyboard was. Not just important, but crucial to these players, and it was blocking them playing the game, or making them go through pain and discomfort. And I don't want to make people feel pain and discomfort. I'm here to make you feel happy and enjoy yourself. So you take some of the earlier German trains, for example. They've got a brake lock key, and there is no key to operate. There's no key on the keyboard to operate that brake lock key. You have to use your joystick or your mouse to go and operate that. And in some cases, that's I just won't play those trains. That's too hard. So what we've done is the setup team have actually done a really good job of looking at all the functions in all the trains and adding, I don't remember how many, it's like 60 new keybinds or something ridiculous. I scrolled down the list for the announced video of all the ones that are in there, covering all the safety systems and everything, and it's all split out as well, so that, for example, if you want to split your AWS and Viva Vigilance, you can do that. If you want your AWS to be different to your PZB, to be different to your access, they've all got separate keybinds to them. So there's loads and loads of keybinds in there now. They're all changeable. You can go and change them all wherever you want to, and they've got defaults on them as well. And it should cover the vast majority of stuff. So it's not a complete list yet, but it covers the vast majority of things. It's just, this is an ongoing process we're going to do. Now, some of the trains, a lot of the trains, prior to TSW4, they have had somewhat inconsistent, in some cases, usage of the internal mappings. So where we have now added the set into the full set into rebinds, it might mean that, for example, if there was a key that we have said is for, I don't know, turning a safety system on or something like that, it may be that even though you can turn that safety system on in an older train with the mouse, it didn't have that particular binding on it, so it won't work on that one. So there are odd cases in the older stock where it's not a complete list, but what you'll find is the older stock benefits from this stuff, but TSW4 onwards will be complete. And so, we're getting a lot of positive feedback, because with this, combined with some of the other player assists like the shunting and switching, one of the beta testers was saying that they completed a shunting scenario purely on the keyboard, except for using the mouse to look around. And it's just like, that's a win. That is someone, he said, it's transformed the game. I can play stuff. This is what I want. So really, that's really, I want to hear more of that kind of thing, and more stories like that, because that was one of those. I posted something on the forum saying, what's bugging you, what's making it difficult to play the game, and he replied to that. And there's more than just that one person. There's other people who've come to me as well with the same thing. And it's just like, oh, okay, that feels like a problem we can just solve and make that go away. So we put the effort in to try and get that done this time. Yeah. So I'm always keen to hear more stories of how we can make the game better. That's what I mean by accessibility, is just opening up to more people.
Yeah, and actually we were talking before the stream, Matt, we have a question from Sitman that says, will custom keybinds work on consoles with keyboards? And actually that's a good example of something that perhaps we've not considered yet, but actually, because it's not currently in TSW4, but it's something that actually, now that sparked a little fire and said, you know what, actually we should do that.
Yeah, we've had a number of people saying that, why doesn't it work on consoles? It's like, you know what? I don't know why it doesn't work on consoles. That's silly. So it's something that I want to get on the team's radar for maybe something in the future without promising anything. It is something that's now in the back of my mind saying we should just sort that.
Yeah.
Because I think that probably what's happening there is it's just hiding the menu option because it's not a PC. And if that's the case, that's trivial to fix.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else ease of access related? I know we've still got quite a lot to go through, so I want to try and make sure we cover as much as we can.
No, I think we covered it all now.
Okay, haptics. This is one I was particularly interested and excited about. We talked about consoles and stuff. This is obviously controller based, but consoles I think will benefit probably the most from this, and DualShock controllers on PlayStation the most.
Got something to show you.
Oh! So that's in action. That's the haptics in action so far.
That's the green light.
Oh, wow.
That's the green light. So this is telling me that in my PlayStation over here, I've got a green light as my next signal. It's gimmicky. It's a little bit silly. But you know what? It's really cool.
I think that's pretty stellar, to be honest. I really like that.
So it lights up. That's on the DualShock 4 and the whatever they call the 5. It's on both of the PlayStation controls. Obviously, your Xbox controller doesn't have such a thing, but they do get haptics.
Yes.
But
by haptics we mean sort of rumbles, the kind of the physical sensation of being able to kind of do certain things in game, whether that's sort of going over track joints or anything like that. Throttle and brake level vibration, collisions with buffers or coupling, track switches, interactions, hovering over interactable controls in the cabs, train safety system alerts. You get those via the speaker now, which is cool.
So again, on the bottom of the PlayStation, both of the PlayStation speakers, there's a controller's a little speaker, and we can route the safety system alarms and so forth out of those. If you turn the volume down on them in the game, because there's a volume control for this, and like the haptics, I've got an intensity control as well. But yeah, if you turn the volume all the way down, then they'll revert to coming back out of your monitor again. So you've got control over it, or how you want that to work.
And it works for controllers on PC as well, right?
Haptics works on controllers for PC. If you plug a PS5 controller in, it'll just look like a normal controller. So you don't get the benefit of lights and speakers and all the rest of the fun stuff. I've seen questions about adaptive triggers. No, we don't have anything for adaptive triggers at this point. Okay. So it's rumble, light, and sound.
That's cool.
But I'll tell you what, driving the train, going over junctions and so forth, and having the cling, cling, cling as it goes over is really nice.
Yeah. An important note here. So the only thing that will only work on TSW4 content for this is the train safety system alerts via the speaker. So the audio side of things is the only thing that's TSW4 specific.
Yeah, because we've had to code that specifically in the trains to make it send that out there. Yeah.
Everything else should work with your entire back catalogue. That is very cool. Anything else on haptics? I feel like we should give it more time in the sun, but it's definitely a very cool feature that we hope will kind of help increase the immersion that you feel when you're playing the game.
As with anything new, it's kind of like, we want to see what the feedback is, and if people have ideas for, other ways they think it could be used, then, I'm interested to see what people think of. So there's one person saying that Simon's GoPro, will the PS4 controller vibrate? Yes. So double yellow signals. So the way that works is it's just showing you what's on the HUD, the green, yellow, and red that's on the HUD. So it's just mimicking that. It's not telling you what the signals. Otherwise, how would I do red over green in an American thing? So it's just mimicking what's on the HUD.
Yeah. Cool. Volumetric fog then. I have something to show for this one.
I love this.
Yeah, I'm going to show rather than tell on this one. So volumetric fog, Matt, tell us a little bit about this. These are all also taken from the majority from our beta team as well.
I took this one.
Oh, you took this one. Okay.
Yeah, I took this one and this one because I just love this. It's just, it adds so much volume to the world. It's like you can, things have, the light is taking a journey now from the light source to the thing that it's lighting up. And as an addition to this, was a beta one. In addition to that, you've got the ambient around the fog is lit up as well. So, you'll find that, whizzing through the stations at night is very different compared to whizzing through them without the volumetric fog. So it's not just about the light cones coming out of the different lights, but just that impact of how much more you can see and how much it spreads the ambient light around, and the sort of like it's almost like a blur and so forth. And it's important not just don't think about this as just in terms of foggy days. These are all shots in somewhat foggy days, so you can see it more clearly. But it actually makes a notable difference if you just dial it up a tiny bit. You'll see the effect of it, and it'll still feel like a clear day, but not a perfectly clear day, which suddenly starts to feel more realistic.
Yeah. I mean, shots look stunning, and I think one of I've seen it mentioned a few times in the chat already is performance. How does this impact performance? First thing to say is there is a toggle for this on and off volumetric fog, right? Isn't there? Is it like an on-off toggle, or is it a severity toggle?
It's on off. It's on off. So try it and find out on PC and work out, whether or not the frame rate hit. There is a frame rate hit for it. It's not too bad. So we default it to on in every case. It's only on PC, it's on Gen 9 consoles, and it's on Xbox One X because that had enough horsepower to run it well. None of the other Gen 8 consoles have the option at all because the frame rate hit was just too big. Just try it and find out whether or not it runs on your system to the level that you're comfortable with. Having more fog doesn't hit the frame rate anymore. Turning the system on and off is what will do it.
Yeah, cool. We will update the FAQs with that information as well. That was something that I think we found out fairly recently, so we'll make sure that the FAQs are updated to reflect volumetric fog being something that's for those respective platforms. But every other thing, if you're finding it is impacting your performance, you can toggle that on or off.
Yeah.
So what? There's a couple of questions about Dresden lighting, the infamous Dresden lighting, and how the volumetric fog impacts Dresden lighting, because I think it's obviously held up as a kind of what's the word? Paragon, is that the right word of how night lighting should be done? And obviously we will show you that during the Dresden live stream. We want to try and make sure that we show you a little bit of the darkness, and we'll try and show you what the fog looks like in that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, one of the things in terms of backward compatibility is volumetric fog only works on TSW3 and later routes.
Yes.
So it needs the new lighting system. It needs TOD4 lighting system to work. So it works on bigger than just the current routes. It's all of the ones that were released over the last year. But prior to that, it won't. Which means that Dresden really needs the TOD4 upgrade so that you can see the fog in there. And I'm just waiting for the team to show me some screenshots of this incredible night lighting with the bit of fog enabled, and I just cannot wait.
Clark Reynolds put in the chat, Dresden fog equals survival mode in most other games. Yeah, it does. It does give you the kind of Silent Hill style vibes, I would imagine. Cool. Okay. Anything else on volumetric fog at all?
So Red Leader says volumetric fog works. The route is TOD4 and the Loco supports it. The Loco doesn't need to do anything to support it. All the lights in the game naturally, if it's a TOD4 thing, they're all the light cones and everything, they're there. So it's just the route. It needs to be a TOD4 route. That's the only requirement. Yeah. Otherwise than that, nope.
Cool. Okay, let's go on to rain effect. Rain effects on windscreen. We've got a quick video to show you for this one, so we'll switch over to that. Just takes a little second to get going. You can see the rain particles on the windscreen. Matt, I guess the question for this is, obviously we've done it on the windscreen. That looks brilliant. This is something because 90% of the time you're looking through the windscreen, and as you can see there, it looks awesome. We've decided to kind of focus on that area rather than try and do it everywhere. Right.
Yeah, I mean, rain on the window and rain in the world are actually two completely different things. The thing that is sort of the first thing that hits you when you've got them is the sort of the blocky effect on the rain, and the fact that it's quite slow. It's only running at 30 frames per second. The rain effect on the window is now running at 60 frames per second. So it looks and runs and feels smoother than it did before. And your hard edges are gone, or the blocky edges are gone. And the other thing is that if you don't run the wipers, it does have much more of an impact on the visuals. So you will need to use the wipers now, whereas you previously, you kind of didn't in some cases. You could barely see the difference. So we wanted to just really tackle that, because that's a non-trivial problem. That's quite a complex system. And so we wanted to just give that the dedicated effort. And it's taken a good chunk of time to get it to where it's at. I'm not sure how good that video that I took was there, but you kind of get the idea. But it's some of the stuff that I've seen. It's made a really big difference on the drive. And yeah, it's a very big change to how that works. And certainly whenever you look up close to it, it still looks like a good detail.
Yeah, and is that something that is, again, TSW4 feature?
Yeah, that's TSW4, because that has to be set up on the Loco. That's an art job that has to be set up on the Loco to give it the new system.
Yeah, okay. Cool. Okay. As I say, if you want to watch that video at your own leisure, it is on the roadmap article. There is a lot more other content and a lot more other videos that we haven't shown tonight, either from the keynote or other bits and pieces that are available for you to watch. There's a music one as well, which is quite interesting if you're interested in music. And Ben is our musical maestro, has done some really interesting stuff with music in this, including the TSW4 soundtrack that you heard at the start of the stream, which will be the menu music as well. So a big pat on the back to Ben. Matt, do you want to just quickly, while we're on the subject of music, talk about scenario moments, because they're a new feature for TSW4.
Yeah, so yeah, Ben did a great job on the music last year, and he did an even better job on the music this year. And as I was listening to the theme, as you know, during the course of Ben composing it and giving us examples of it, it was like I could feel moments in there where I was just like, oh, I can sort of see a train whizzing by at high speed at this moment, and it kind of like out of that. The team came up with this. Well, we're doing kind of things like that in the scenarios. So, and so talking with Ben has composed some spin-offs of the theme tune, which give us, I think, 9 or 10 tracks in total, and that gives us a piece of music now that will play with each of the route intros. So you get more of Ben's great music as a reward for playing the route intros. So go play the route intros.
Play the route intros.
Because it's beautiful. Because the idea is that you get the basic sort of, welcome to the route. This is not the look up, look down, look left, look right nonsense. This is just a quick intro to the route. But then as they're driving along, you get a nice visual and you'll get the music playing. It's 30 seconds. And then some of the scenarios, one for each of the topics. So one for each of the routes, one for the Vectron, one for the Scotsman. We've got like a cinematic moment in there where one of the scenarios you have to get the Scotsman up to a certain speed, and when you do that, then you'll get this moment. The music will play as the Scotsman goes scorching past you. It's just meant to be a bit different to what we've done before. We thought we'd experiment a bit with the music. Ben was really up for it, wanted to try something new, and so with the gameplay team. And so we think there's some quite exciting stuff. One of the blockbuster scenario I was talking about on the Los Angeles route is one of these ones that's got the music playing as well, along with so much else. It's just brilliant. Yeah. So there's some really cool. This stuff it's going to feel different, and I think what we're really keen to see is what people think about this. In terms of the presentation of train simulation gameplay and what the sort of impact that has. We're not talking about making it arcadey or non-realistic. This is just about amping that sort of experience up.
Exactly, and a few people have asked about things like the soundtrack and the music video being available and all that kind of stuff. The soundtrack, I believe, is available as a deluxe edition benefit to download and a special edition benefit to download on Steam. And the music video that we showed at the start of the keynote, we will put that live at some point. It needs a little bit of editing to do so. Probably will be closer to release. We've got quite a lot of video content coming up in the next few weeks. We want to make sure you get the opportunity to see all of it, so that might come a little bit later down the line. But don't worry, it will be uploaded at some point. Cool. OHLE improvements. Quick image to show you here. So this is before and after of the OHLE rendering, and you can see a big difference here in what you're able to visually see from the OHLE. It's always been there, but it's just been making sure that people have been able to actually see it, and that's, I guess, the crux of the improvement, Matt, right?
Yeah, so the problem here is what's called subpixel rendering, and that is you've got thin wires, and once they're at a point where they're no longer a pixel in height on the screen, they then kind of not there. How do you render something less than 1 pixel? 1 pixel is the minimum you can render on a screen, which means they start flickering and all sorts of strange things. And that's why the OHLE tended to flicker a bit. You can see on the left-hand side there, the vertical lines have almost all vanished immediately. And the actual wires themselves sort of fade into very little fairly quickly. Whereas on the right-hand side, all of the vertical lines are present, all of the actual OHLE is visible. I mean, coming out of Dresden, which does have the new OHLE on it already, is very different. All of a sudden, you feel like you're really under all of these wires now. It makes a huge difference to that whole impression of how that works. So OHLE rendering is a feature that is upgraded on a per route basis. It's a change we've got to make to the OHLE on the route. So that'll be TSW4 onwards, but also including Dresden. I think Kassel-Würzburg has it because that was what we originally tested it on.
Right. Okay. Cool. OHLE rendering. Let's move on swiftly. Something that I wasn't aware that we were doing until we put it in the keynote is character dioramas, and those seem to get quite a lot of interesting feedback from some of our players. So let me just quickly show you some of them. I think this again is probably best shown through visual rather than us talking about it. So by character dioramas we mean characters doing something slightly different. They've got a selection of different behaviors and characteristics that we can give them for Train Sim World 4 that they haven't previously had before. You can see the guy holding the phone there, but Matt, I don't know if you wanted to comment on these ones.
So there's two things here. So the on the bottom row there, you've got coffee cup, mobile phone, briefcase, and a suitcase, and that's on the real NPCs. Those are the characters walking around. So when the guy with the suitcase there starts walking, he will drag the suitcase along behind him, and these are animated. They're the guy on the phone there is sort of he looks like he's on a phone. He's not just a static thing. This is an awesome shot, by the way, taken by Josh in the beta team, and again, it's all your effects there are from photo mode. And then when we get back to the other shot, you'll notice on the top row you've got people sitting around coffee tables in front of the coffee place. There's a guy so there'll be a character in the coffee place who would be different each time. You've got people queuing up there. All these little dioramas meant to sort of bring a bit of life, and they're all animated and doing a thing, and having sort of fake conversations and so forth, gesturing to each other in certain ways. So it just brings a bit of life to these scenes. And this is kind of the character team. One of the reasons it wasn't mentioned is purely because the character team were experimenting with this and they wanted to see where they would get to. They've been experimenting with meta-humans as a technology as well, which is the new character system in the latest versions of Unreal. So we actually have some dioramas along the line of engineers discussing something, and those are some of the new meta-humans characters as well, so you can see sort of some of the first sights of those as well. But we got to a point where it's just like, actually these are looking really good, let's get them in. Full credit to the character team. They've done an amazing job on those. It's really added something extra to the life on the platforms.
Yeah, I guess the follow-up questions are around, so are these all for Train Sim World 4 routes? Are any of them any of the dioramas bleeding into any of the older routes? And as kind of, I guess, as a part B, we wouldn't expect, say, someone holding a mobile phone to be in, say, Spirit of Steam, for instance, which is obviously anachronistic.
Not unless there's a DeLorean next to them.
Oh, that would be a good little mastery reward, wouldn't it?
I'll let you go and talk to licensing about that.
But no, I mean, are they available on TSW4 routes exclusively?
So the dioramas will remain on TSW4 routes going forward because they're set up to the new thing. I don't think they'll plug into any previous because they've not been set up. These are the new dioramas are kind of designed around this coffee area and the cafes that we've got in the stations. The NPCs, however, we've updated the standard modern character set, which means they'll appear on some of the older routes. I think James, what was route he said he saw them on Southeastern? Yeah, he saw the new briefcases and so forth on Southeastern. So you'll see some of this stuff appearing on some older routes, but the dioramas will be something that we're going to build out now. So we said that previously in Rush Hour, but the character team are actually they've got some really good stuff, and I've already seen some of the stuff they've got planned for some of the following content as well. So there's some really cool stuff there.
Yeah, Blue Games asks, is this something that we can include or we could create ourselves in the editor dioramas?
Don't see why not. Yeah, don't see why not.
And probably follow-up question that I would imagine players are going to want to know is we've seen quite a lot of talk around things like passenger behaviour. And sometimes they do things right, sometimes they don't do things right. Obviously, the dioramas are brilliant, they're really nice to see, but in terms of sort of day-to-day passenger behaviour, has any of that changed for Train Sim
No,
World 4?
nothing's changed on the normal NPC behavior. That's a complex system. It's actually the standard Unreal NPC system, and you're kind of coming rapidly to a conclusion that it's done its time and we need to think of something radically different, and that's not a small thing to do. So don't have a good answer or a good plan on that one yet, but we understand the where people would like to see it better.
Okay, I think that covers all the stuff that we wanted to go over on core features, but there are a couple of things that I know players that have been mentioned on the roadmap that are not going to come with Train Sim World 4's release, but will be something that we'll be releasing afterwards. First of which we've talked about already, which is suspension improvements. Now those will be available on the 323 in Training Centre on release, but those suspension improvements, sort of the more vertical movement of suspension in Train Sim World 4, that will be coming after release at some point in the undefined future at the moment. And we put it in the roadmap at 1 to 3 months. We think it will probably be out during that window. Obviously, we don't want to promise it at this point, but I think Matt, you were saying the dev that's working on it is making good progress. We wanted to make sure though that the actual locos that came with the routes had the physics they needed to before we then moved on to the kind of the suspension improvements throughout as well.
Yeah, so there's a couple of people that have been working on this. One of them has been working on the Azuma, and I thought that getting the Azuma top notch was more important, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I'm not rushing him, and letting him have his break. He's got a holiday next week, so it's so the idea is that. We've got a first sort of implementation of suspension sitting on the 323, and it's good to sort of get a feel for what it looks like and how it feels in the cab as it's bouncing up and down over the junctions and so forth. It's really, really nice. But with each train, you've got the sort of the way that they set the suspension up is different. The way that it reacts is going to be slightly different. So we know as we start actually putting this out onto the trains, there's going to be more problems to solve. The more tech needed this needs this kind of suspension or this kind of linkage. This works this way. So it's kind of like, okay, rather than rush this to get it out, let's give it the time it needs and get it done properly in each case. And think about also how do we then make sure that system will work for the trains we want to do going forwards, like the Pacer and so forth, so that we've got actually a good usable system. One of the neat things actually that the engineer who was working on it sent me a video of where he'd got to the other day, which is more in advance of what's in the 323, and it's all set up to be somewhat extreme at the moment because of because it makes, if you can see it really easily, it makes it easier to see what's going on. But it was loading the oil tankers from Oakville, where you put the thing on the top and then you turn the thing and it starts loading, and you could see it taking the weight.
Okay, yeah.
As it compressed the suspension, it's just like, and that's just a natural side effect of the fact that we've got the suspension in there now. The thing was always getting heavier, but now you can sort of see it, the physics taking shape with that. And there's all sorts of other little side effects like rocking from side to side, going round. If you go around a corner, faster, you can see the suspension leaning the train a bit out. So there's things like that. And we just want to make sure that's tuned and it's right and it's what people want to see, and we've got it set for the thing. So it's looking like a really good system, and I think you'll be quite excited using the 323 in training sets. Obviously, you can take that 323 and run it anywhere you like, and still experience the physics. The physics are on the train. But
so that'd be on Birmingham Cross City if people want to use it.
If you want to free roam it anywhere you like, or scenario plan it anywhere you like. It's not tied to train centre. It's on the loco, on the train. So you can, if you want to try and do that elsewhere, then you can certainly do that. But yeah, have a look at it. It'll give you a first hint of where we're going with it, and hope we get as excited as we are for it. It's transformational to the experience.
Okay. Second one of those is Formation Designer. So Formation Designer is something that, again, you might have seen a couple of things mentioned on the actual the announcement live stream where we refer to it. We did originally have it in the announced stream, and then I think we were conscious that at this point it was probably going to be something that came after release, so we didn't want to put it in there just in case people were wanted it as a feature on day one and it wasn't going to be available. So instead, we've included it in the roadmap. But Matt, can you give us a quick Formation Designer 101 for us?
Yeah, formation design is something that so many people have been asking for. It's just the ability to take your collection of trains and make your own. A formation is a series of rail vehicles coupled together, and just the ability to make your own ones. Previously in Scenario Planner, and before this, Free Roam would have had the same thing. You could only pick from the formations that we've created for you. Now, obviously, in the PC editor, you can make anything you like using the internal formation designer. But this has the nice advantage of being really nice, user-friendly. It's very visual. You'll pick from your library of trains, and then what it actually builds up is a 3D version of your train that you can sort of move the camera at. It's using the same system as Livery Designer, just to give you an idea of what to expect visually. So you can then add vehicles. You can, if they're wagons, you can set them loaded or not. You can flip them. You can create bits of formations, which you then use later on as sort of to help you create them faster. So here's 10 wagons in a particular thing, and they can include liveries specifically. So you can make your second wagon your custom livery of this wagon or standard van, or you can make the third wagon this other variant of your wagon. So it won't be, this is not random substitution. You pick the liveries you want or the defaults that you want. So you've got your 10 wagons. If now you want to make a 40 wagon train, you just put 4 of those 10 wagon formations in there. So you can help create macro formations, if you like, so that you can build them faster. So it's quite a flexible, versatile system, and then you can use those formations in Scenario Planner and Free Roam.
Yeah, Blue asks, is there a limit to how many wagons there could be in a formation?
I think we limit it to 100 at the moment, because the physics start to fall to pieces at 100.
Yeah, but yeah, this is obviously another creative tool for players to be able to utilize. Someone's asked, is it like a consist editor? Yeah, it's that basically.
Yeah, it's a consist editor.
And we're really excited to see what people are going to be able to use it for. Obviously, caveat is it's not going to be there for release day, but when we have more information for you, we will of course do things like preview live stream. We'll give you a little bit more information about it. We'll probably be able to share the part of the announced video that we then weren't able to, that we had to pull out of it, so you can have a little bit more information about it. But yeah, that is something to look forward to, but obviously it's not going to be there on release, so that if that's a deal breaker for you, then might be worth holding out until that is released.
Yeah, so a couple of people have been talking about what they could do with the formation designer in terms of, like, for example, could you duplicate coaches on a 700 RLU to make it look like an FLU? No. So multiple units you pretty much can only use in the way they are, because of the way that the coaches are all coupled and built to work together. They're not really that divisible. So what you'll find is that sometimes you're dealing with formations like a Talent 2 in Germany. You can't put them together in any other way than the way that they've been done. So you'll only be able to say add 2 Talent 2s together or something like that. So individual vehicles like wagons and coaches, obviously you can do what you like with those, but indivisible units, like multiple units, will remain indivisible. And the 100 wagon limit, obviously, if you make make a 100 wagon formation, put 2 of them down, and then couple them together in Free Roam, have at it. If your machine can cope with that, great.
Yeah, absolutely. What was I going to say? A few people are saying it was daylight outside JD's door when the stream started. It's now dark.
It'll be daylight by the time it's finished again.
Yeah, Ben Schmidt. You guys still going? Really strong work out there. Thank you, Ben. We've still got a little bit more to go as well. We are going to try and wrap this up at some point in the next 3 days. But we will do our best to kind of again answer. We've got some questions as well that have been asked as well. We'll try and quick fire at the end. But hopefully again we've answered quite a few as we've gone through. So fingers crossed. You've got quite a lot of info that you're armed with at this point. Formations are the only other thing that was mentioned is, are those formations visible in timetable mode, or is it just going to be things within scenarios?
Scenario Planner and Formation Designer. So injecting your custom formations is I'm not sure how that would work. It may be something we look at as let's get this lot out of the way and then we can see what that might look like. But no, short of spawning them own, what you could do is in a service mode, you could then spawn your Free Roam. Spawn your formation using the Free Roam functionality essentially, but that's not changing the formation. It's like essentially in the service mode itself.
Okay. Fine. Bad guy says JD's gonna be sleeping at the mic here pretty quickly. It's past his bedtime. It is past my bedtime. Okay, right. Let's get on with it. Southeastern route improvements. So this is something that's gonna be coming to TSW4. Um, we have a series of screenshots to be able to show you, but we've also got a big long list of things that the team have been working on. Big shout out to Daisy and to James, who have kind of helped put all of these together. But these are things that not just the stop markers for the 700, but lots of other changes that have, hopefully will improve the route for everybody's benefit. So I've got a few screens to show you. I'm just going to list them out, so whatever I've got on here probably isn't going to be what is on the screen right now, but we've added the Thameslink stopping boards to the stations between Rainham and Dartford. We've corrected, improved the location and quality of other conventional stopping boards. There is a cat. It's not quite Phoebe, but there is one called Phoebe. We've added DOO monitors where they were missing. We've added CIS boards to Rain and Platform 0. Oh, there's another cat. We've improved lighting at Gillingham and Ashford depots, as well as Faversham sidings. Added extra scenery items at Ashford depot, including depot protection system lights. All of this is listed on the roadmap article if you want to check it out. And there's a video as well showing some of this stuff in action rather than screenshots. We've added new clock assets to Gillingham Station. Wow, there are a lot of cats, aren't there?
No, really.
Improved the look of Northfleet Station platforms and fences. Fencing. We've added the missing foliage at Springhead Junction, where the HS1 joins the North Kent line. Added missing feeder substation at Springhead Junction. Added lightning and gantry assets around Hoo Junction and staff halts. We fixed instances of passengers not boarding and alighting trains at Higham Station. Added missing 15 and 20 mile an hour speed boards at Rochester Bridge Junction. Replaced container crates near Purfleet on HS1 with buses as per reality. We've replaced the high-rise building at HS1 Medway Viaduct with a more reasonable alternative. We've fixed a misplaced asset which was covering tracks outside Ashford. We removed invisible walls blocking on-foot Ashford depot movement. Added a prompt to bypass and access the fenced-off footbridge at Ashford. There's loads of new little Easter eggs in there. The feline, the detail, can you find Gandalf tripod, Daisy and Phoebe? Well, I think we've just found all four of them. Embarking on some value viewfinding to pass the time, and there is a few other Easter eggs in there as well. They've done a really great job with this. One of the things that was mentioned around this was something that we talked about in relation to the Class 700 releasing. There was a lot of other things that we wanted to do with Southeastern, and this is kind of a culmination of why we kind of held some of that stuff back. Not held some of that stuff back. It was all being done at the same time, but it's a much larger release than just the stop markers at the Thameslink stopping boards. So we wanted to give it the time it needed to come out. So here it is. I'm going to breathe now, and we're back to the start of the images too. So I'm going to cut back to this. So that's the Southeastern improvements. Just to repeat, that one is coming to Train Sim World 4 on release day, so you can look forward to that one.
Just want to clarify before we move on, though, it's not getting TOD 4.
No, true. Yes.
It's on. Is it not on TOD 4 already? It was last year's release. It's on TOD 4.
It's on TOD 4.
Yeah, sorry, no. Someone asked if it was getting TOD 4.
It will get volumetric fog and all that jazz.
Yeah, it'll get. It is TOD 4. I'm talking out of my. But the.
Carry that sentence on, man.
But it's not getting TSW4 features.
Yes, that's fair. Yeah.
That was what I meant to say all along.
Yes. Okay. You can tell we've been here for 3 hours at this point, can't you?
My tea is well cold.
I know. That does not look like tea, Matt, but I'll let you have it. Okay, Niddertalbahn. So there was a little fun thing that Lucas and the team have been putting together. So there is going to be the BR 628 in the red livery coming on, because now we've got obviously the Austrian routes. We wanted to implement this. This is going to be a new livery for Niddertalbahn. So if you own that route, you're going to get this one in there as well. That's a nice little change and a nice little improvement from Lucas and the team.
So a couple of questions I've seen on the forums about this, just to clarify. It's an extra livery, but it won't appear on Niddertalbahn because that's not era appropriate for Niddertalbahn.
Sorry, yes. Yeah, good
so this will appear on other routes, like Vorarlberg. And the blue one won't because it's inappropriate for Vorarlberg. So it's still going to give you appropriate. You got the choice. Obviously, you can do what you like with them in Scenario Planner and Free Roam. But yeah, it's not going to. You're not suddenly going to start seeing red ones appearing on Niddertalbahn.
Cool. Right, good clarification, Matt. Thank you. New York Trenton. The timetable is coming with Train Sim World 4's release. We're also planning, or the intention is to include it in Train Sim World 3 after release as well. So that is now, as far as I'm aware, the development is complete, and there is, I'm not sure if it's finished testing, Matt, at this point, or if it's still got testing to do.
I think there's a bit more to go.
Yeah, but everything that we've talked about previously is all good. Joe's chucked a little section in the roadmap this time around. I'm just going to read it because obviously Joe's words, he's kind of lived this project, so he knows it a little bit better than myself or Matt do. So he's now completed all of the Amtrak, NJT, and Long Island traffic, and moved on to freight services. So most of those freight services will be AI only. Because of the safety systems that are in them. But there was one that they can make playable, ME2, specifically at shunting duties at Jersey Avenue. So that operates entirely in unsignalled yard areas, which allows it to be playable, and it's quite a fun one too. There's lots of added static traffic as well. I've got some images that we can show here. So that's obviously not static stock, but there will be an image of static stock. Including Croxton Yard, here we go, which has quite a noticeable difference where driving over the bridge at Secaucus. And there are a few lines that cross the NEC that will have traffic, such as Croxton and the Lehigh line, which crosses the NEC between Newark Penn and Newark Airport. All in all, the route is a bit more lively now. Thanks very much for that, Joe. So that's coming with Train Sim World 4's release. We're really excited to get that in people's hands. We know it's been something that people have been champing at the bit to get at. Anything else on Trenton, Matt?
Nope.
Let's move on to the Koln-Aachen timetable, which is a new addition to the roadmap this time round. That's exciting. So there's been a new, again, another Joe one. So big kudos to Joe. This is going to be a post-release improvement. It's not going to come with Train Sim World 4's release, but we're hoping within a couple of months of TSW4's release. There's a new timetable that's been created from scratch, and there's an opportunity that's come up with a new journeys pack, but what he has planned is bigger than that. So there's a few service patterns created for NJP that have been taken across, which are the S6, S11, S12, RE8, and RB27. These have been extended into the next morning based on the longer timetable tech first used in Kassel-Würzburg. Everything else is brand new, so there's S19, RE1, RE9 to name a few. There's a bunch of new freight services based on real-life timings and destinations, like what you might be used to on Bremen-Oldenburg, as well as a lot of new AI for Koln, Horum, Düren, and Aachen Hauptbahnhof, which makes the route seem very busy, especially in Koln. Making me do German pronunciation 3 hours and 10 minutes into a live stream is not fun. I don't know why I left it to this late, but that's a really good addition to, I think, quite a staple route within TSW. Again, important to note that's a new timetable rather than any other additions or changes to the route. There will be a couple, I think, of little bugs fixed here and there, but they're nothing, again, that we're going to sort of shout from the rooftops about. But that is, again, another really useful kind of quality of life improvement coming to a staple TSW route. We're looking forward to seeing what you come up to, how you enjoy it.
Yeah, it's again, this is one of Joe's passion projects because he's a machine, and has been. It's just he messaged me one morning and said, "So, do you want a new Koln timetable? Because I've just about finished it." Okay. Yeah, it's but it needs more time. Joe's been busy, obviously, so he's asked for more time on it. So we've pushed it out, and it's looking really good. Beta testers have been enjoying it. I think there's even a Vectron service in there as well. So there's tons of stuff going on. I think Cologne is a lot busier.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. And the last one just on this section is the BR187 audio. Because we know, again, that has been something that's been trundling along for a long time. We have an improvement for that coming with Train Sim World 4. So I know that's been a long time coming. I think we've developed that one in-house now, so fingers crossed it provides a suitable improvement to the audio that is currently on the Loco. So that is coming with Train Sim World 4's release as well. There are lots of other things and lots of other improvements that are coming, but there's more details on the actual roadmap article itself around what you can expect for Train Sim World 3, Train Sim World 4 improvements both on release and post-release. So have a look at that, and you'll get a little bit more information there. Okay, final thing before we get into some player questions. I'm just going to do a quick show of the roadmap again because we're going to touch on our partner program. So as you can see in here, we have some stuff from Just Trains. We've got a few bits and pieces from Rivet. We've got an unnamed new partner who's going to hopefully be providing us a Loco pack in the future. What you won't see on there at the moment is the 420, anything from Alan Thompson Simulation or from Union Workshop, which are kind of our three other partners, apart from Skyhook Games, obviously, as well, who are sort of taking a look at what they want to do for TSW4. So just a quick note on those. We don't have release dates penned in as of yet. Matt was obviously talking a little bit about how new developers are sort of adapting at different times to using the editor tool sets for Train Sim World, or Train Sim World 4 specifically. So some of that stuff is we haven't penciled in timeframes for as of yet. The 420 is perhaps the slight exception to that. Obviously, Mike Galtz has been using that tool set for a long time. That is probably our fault because we keep on grabbing him and asking him to help us out with some German stuff across the board. So he's still working on the 420. It's still coming, but we don't have a release window yet for it. When we do, we'll plug it into the schedule.
Yeah, we also need to schedule in some upgrades to the Munich route to support the 420 as well.
Yes,
so
exactly.
There's a number of things that need to be resolved for that one. So, but they're coming. It's just once they have a date scheduled, then we can start sharing a bit more information.
And Crazy Killer asked, what does CH mean on the roadmap? That is Switzerland. So the little flag next to it is the Swiss flag. I love flags, so that's why I asked for the flags to be included on it. Cool. Okay.
My wife asked me what was so great about Switzerland, and I said, well, I don't know, but the flag's a big plus.
I'm not even gonna deign that with a response, Matt. Okay. Final thing. No, sorry, not final thing. Let's go to some player questions then. We've got a long list. I'm going to say at this point, unless there's anything really, really pressing from the chat, we're going to just try and use the ones that we've already got because it's already quite late. And hopefully we've answered most of the things that you're also asking for anyway at this point. So we've got some gathered ones from the forums. PVZ asks, with the new timetable coming from NY-Trenton for release day on TSW4, is it a timetable update only, or are there any other improvements to Trenton?
Don't know yet at this point. It's something we need to see what we can schedule in. We're aware of the couple of burning issues like the pantographs and so forth that need to be looked at. But at this point in time, it's a timetable only update. Yeah. But if we can get some other stuff scheduled, I definitely will.
Yeah, I think the thing was we didn't want to hold the timetable update any later than it needed to be held. So
as soon as it's ready to go, get it out, get people enjoying the full experience. It's so much better.
Yeah, and Crazy Killers asked, it's one of the ones we've got on our list as well as a follow-up, sort of the PIS on the routes. I think it's Southeastern, Birmingham, Cross City, and I think it might be Trenton as well on the trains. That's also something that we're aware of. We haven't got a confirmed fix for that as yet within TSW4 or TSW3, but we're aware of it, and I know that that's also on Matt's list to target.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Q&A time. So Paul on Justice asked, will the Add-ons Manager be a part of TSW4 from the start?
So what Add-ons Manager has sort of evolved into, much more integrated into the code, is part of TSW4, has been since the start. Just to give an idea of where that sits, the PC beta players have had it since the beginning with a full catalogue of DLC and have not noticed it. So it seems to be working very well. Yeah, we're rolling Xbox beta testers on now. And again, not experiencing any issues, but they've only just started. So not experiencing any problem, not expecting any problems at all, to be honest. So yeah, Add-on Manager is part and parcel of the core game now.
Is when the PC players have been testing it, have they been testing it with any mods installed?
So yes, so they've been having mixed success with mods, and we've got several mod creators working with us on the beta now. And so one of the people on the beta team made a mod for ECML already to try some stuff out, and that worked. So fundamentally mods work, but there are some cases where it's causing some problems. So we've got the team working with them, trying to understand what we can do to ease that and make that work better. So that's ongoing.
Okay. Connie Thunder asks, when I move over to TSW4, does the content that I have existing at the moment need to be re-downloaded, or can we move our TSW3 content? It all does need to be re-downloaded again.
Yeah.
And following on from that, I would say there's a question about progress transfer too. Does my progress from TSW2 or TSW3 transfer to TSW4? Answer is yes. And I know there were some challenges last year with things like achievements popping and collectibles. So
achievements not popping, I think, is probably
exactly,
more
yeah. No, so there is an important contextual thing here, is that actually we can't through default re-enable achievements. Basically, it goes against the terms of service for the platforms themselves.
Yeah, so not allowed to do that.
So players would have to do those again in Train Sim World 4. However, there are certain instances, say for instance, if it's drive 145 miles and you then drove a mile in TSW4, it should pop, for instance. The biggest ones that we were seeing problems with, where there were ones that weren't unlocking after you'd completed it, or they were saying that they were complete and you couldn't do them again, but then you couldn't get the achievement. So we've been working on fixing those, Matt, haven't we?
Yeah, so if you just redo the scenario tutorial, you'll now get the achievement. We've fixed that issue, and the collectibles is the last case that the team are working on at the moment, because if you've got an achievement for, say, collect 50 collectibles and you've collected them all, there's nothing to do to trigger it again. So we're trying to work out the best solution for that. So there's still that one to resolve, but everything else flows through smoothly. Again, Xbox beta testers came on announced day, actually on Tuesday, and they've all been reporting success with the profiles coming across smoothly and working as they expect. So that's a good sign.
Cool. And Jan and Dunk, I don't think we can transfer the collectibles over between games, but say for instance, Matt was saying if you've collected 23 of 25, for instance, my understanding is, Matt, that those two would be, in its current state, those two would be collectible still within the route.
Yeah, the exact state of the collectibles will come across. So if you've, whatever you've collected was what you will have collected in the imported version. So your progress on collectibles, if there's two left, there'll still be two left, and you'll still have to find them the same way you would have had to find them previously. So that's all fine. It's just where there are achievements linked to collectibles, and there aren't enough collectibles left to be able to still meet those criteria. That's the case, the only case left that the team are resolving on. Everything else should work perfectly.
Cool. Tiger asks, will the rapid transit Dosto finally be fixed in TSW4? We've got good news on this one. Yes.
Fixed.
Yay. Nate Dog, similar question. The issues known with Peninsula Corridor, when will these be fixed? Will they be for TSW4 only? I think we covered these in the roadmap article. So this is the Baby Bullet Caltrain service is not appearing in Peninsula Corridor. Matt, you believe we have a fix for that, right? And it's just going to require a bit more testing because it's a pretty comprehensive timetable change.
What it is, it's two timetables. We split it up because the substitution system just wasn't up to it, and it was a big change. So we are looking at the big change going forward, but I don't want to hold this up more than the year it's already been held up. So what we've ended up doing is splitting it into two timetables. So the base pack has a timetable that does not feature the MP36 and has full use of your liveries and so forth, and all the services are presented, then the MP36 will introduce a new baby bullet timetable where the baby bullet services are set to the MP36 and the bi-level cars. And then those set up for livery substitution correctly. So the problem is you can try and set it up for liveries and for trains, and it all starts getting a bit confused, and the UI doesn't understand what's going on. And that's why not only were you seeing no services on the bi-level cab car, if you looked at the service counts for the trains, they were all over the shop, showing you the wrong numbers. So that in this new setup is all resolved, and you get the right service counts, everything can be driven, liveries work. And actually what I have found in testing is that even on the base timetable, even though you are not offered the opportunity to drive an MP36, it will substitute in. So it still changes your experience as you're driving on that one with that. So if you want to drive an MP36, use the baby bullet timetable. It's exactly the same, just with all the baby bullets set up. But if you want to use the base one, then you can, and it will still show the MP36 services appearing in substitution as well. So it feels like the best answer to that situation. Every service is now playable, and the UI makes sense and works. So that's quite a big change. Journey had to be changed so the MP36 used the right timetable for it. So that's got to go through QA, and we'll get that out as soon as possible, hopefully on launch for TSW4.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is that's one that requires more testing. So I don't think we've committed to that coming with TSW4, but we will do our damnedest to make sure that we get it out within a reasonable time frame.
The good news is the change is done. Beta testers are playing with it now as well. Yeah. So that's a massive step forward from where we were. We get it through this testing, and then we'll get it out to you. So coming soon.
Cool. And follow-up question, I guess, to that is the Oakville similar situation stuff. We've not had a chance really to look at that yet. We wanted to get Peninsula Corridor sorted first, but there is a hypothesis that solving this might also help to solve the...
So one of the issues that I fixed when I was fixing the timetable issue was actually a bug in the bi-level cars themselves. And I recall when Adam was working on the Oakville, he was saying he couldn't simulate it because it randomly wouldn't work. And that's the bug I fixed on the bi-level cab cars. I found out what that was and fixed it. So I need to go back to Oakville and have a pass over that and see if that works. So I've not looked at it yet, and I've got other higher priority bugs that need to be dealt with. So things that don't work, red light issues, that. But I'm going to come back to Oakville and see whether or not I can resurrect what was done there and see if that fixed it. If it did, then that will come out soon as well.
Okay. Any update, Nate Dog also asked, any update on rush hour passengers for London Brighton? As far as I'm aware, no.
None
still
yet.
The issues that were blocking us implementing them are still there. It requires a pretty comprehensive optimization run on the route that we're not even sure at this stage would allow us to do that. So it is a bigger piece of work. It's not that we're not just putting it on there. It's just that there is a blocker that is the fact that the performance is pretty variable on the route as it is. We don't want to add more stuff to that. So
we have identified some inefficiencies on the route from some of the analysis we've done so far. So we've got places we can go. What we don't know is what benefit we get from those, and whether we get enough to confidently to enable the rush hour passengers without potentially introducing instability.
Yeah. So and if that were to be released, I would imagine at this stage it would be a TSW4 only update. That would be my assertion with that. I don't imagine that it would come to TSW3 at this stage. There was another question which was around US content. So the safety systems for the Acela seem to have had a bit of a hit from a signal patch with a patch for Trenton. Is that something A, that we're aware of, and B, is there a plan with which to improve that situation?
I've had discussions with the team about that. They've not progressed further, but it's something that we have started looking at the feedback on the beta forum and discussing what happened and what we need to do about it. So I can't remember where we got to with it because it was a while ago we did that. So I need to get back into that one.
Okay. So, question about Game Pass. So the FAQ says you need both TSW3 and TSW4 installed to transfer your progress between games. With TSW3 leaving Game Pass on the 1st of September, before the launch of TSW4, which is the 21st, 26th. Does this mean TSW Game Pass players who want to buy TSW4 will lose all of their progress unless they also buy TSW3? I think we tested this, Matt, earlier.
So we've tested PlayStation. I was waiting for the feedback on Xbox, but it hasn't arrived. Hopefully I'll get that tomorrow. And on PlayStation, they were able to install TSW3, do some stuff and get some progress, uninstall TSW3, put TSW4 on, and were able to import their profile.
Okay.
So it didn't need TSW3 installed. So we're going to test that on Xbox as well. Obviously, the safest thing is when Game Pass ends, it doesn't delete it from your console. So just leave it there and then do the import when the game comes out. And then once you've done your import, you can then uninstall it.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to buy TSW3 if you lapse on Game Pass if you're planning to get TSW4. To get that progress transfer, I think is what we're saying. But just make sure it's easier just to leave it as it is rather than trying to remove it for your system or anything like that. We're fairly confident it will work, but we want to just make sure that it does before we say categorically you can get rid of it. So just
if you want to save some space, uninstall all the content.
Yeah. Just
leave the base game on there.
Yeah. Better safe than sorry.
Yep.
Cool. Antwerp Central, a few other people have mentioned in the chat around the Xbox audio challenges that players are currently experiencing or have.
So we haven't made any changes to it, but interestingly, the Xbox beta testers have been on the last few days are telling me they're finding the audio much better. So I need to dig into that and find out if it's just new shiny, sounds new shiny, but actually isn't. We've not done any changes to it though, so expect it to be the same as it is.
Yeah.
If there is a magical improvement that's got in there, then we'll come back to you with big smiles on our faces, but I'm not expecting that.
Okay. PVZ asked, will there be another staggered release for existing add-ons on PlayStation where it takes a few weeks, or can I use all of my old DLC in the new game? The plan is day one for all platforms. If that changes, we'll let you know, but we haven't heard anything to the contrary to say that that's going to be the thing. What I will say is, though, we were in a position where that was the case last year until about 3 or 4 days before we released, and then Sony came back and said, no, you can't do it like that. We have had those conversations a lot earlier this year, and we've had nothing has been pushed back at us to say you can't do this, or we're having to rescope it. So at the moment, as I say, we're planning for everything to be available on day one.
That's the plan. Until it's done, it's not done.
Yes. An important way, I say day one as well, because for early access people, you'll only have access to the core routes rather than your entire collection. That will become available on to download on release day, the 26th. Okay. Crazy asked, will TSW4 be Steam Deck verified, and how will it run on Steam Deck?
So for Steam Deck, we don't have it as an officially supported platform. So what we do with that one is when it gets to the point that probably a couple of days before release, we'll submit it for Steam certification, and it should come back as playable, I think, is the certification that we've currently got, and I expect to get the same certification. So it won't get the gold standard because there's 2 or 3 things that we need to do to comply with that. And it's just not had engineering priority to get to that. We've had other things to do. But we should be able to get it to the same state TSW3 is at. We expect that for release. It works great, to be honest. I mean, it should play exactly the same. I've not tried Volumetric Fog to see how that hits the Steam Deck. But I might fire it up and have a look. No, expect similar performance.
Okay. Max2875 asked, will TSW3 Creators Club content transfer between games? I think you asked the Dovetail Live team this beforehand, Matt. It seems like they will, because it's connected to your Dovetail Live account rather than the game. They should transfer over, but you might need to re-download.
You'll need to re-download. So the first time you boot the game up, it'll do a big download of all your Creators Club subscriptions and pull them down onto your new game.
Yeah. Cool. And a nice fun one to finish, Matt, because I think we've all been here for far too long. I think Chief Longshin said that he's been to the pub and back in the time that it's taken us to get through this live stream. One last question was, so we had a few questions about the recording for the keynote and the announced stream and kind of how that went together. So Sifa asked, how much time did you spend doing the recording? We had a day, didn't we, Matt? We had a so we both sat down fairly early on. I think it was a Thursday morning or something like that. And obviously we had Jordan and we had Lucas who were helping us out. They kind of cycled in and out of the stream, cycled in and out of the recording. I think we were there for about 6 hours, weren't we? Something like that.
On the most uncomfortable chairs on the planet.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, there are points where I think you see visibly both Matt and I by the end of it are in absolute agony from these flipping stools. Yeah, it was a long day, and actually probably made about as much sense by the end of the recording as we are right now. So I think on the subject.
It's good fun though. It was a lot of fun. I mean, it's some of the outtakes I'm sure were hilarious.
Yeah.
So we'll have to try and assemble them together.
I think there was a point where there was a word that I just couldn't pronounce for about 15 minutes by the end of it. And but on the subject of very long endurance-based things, oh, my cat is back there as well. Let's call this one a night for today. I'm sure you've got plenty of other questions. We'll try our best to answer as many as we can do in things like our preview streams and the other content that we've got coming out over the course of the next few weeks before we release. There will be next week. There might be a slight change to the Railfan TV schedule. I think we were chatting earlier, and I think what we might do is rather than do a separate intro to Train Sim World 4 and Vorarlberg live stream, what we might do is we might combine those two together for next Thursday. But we'll confirm that tomorrow. So we'll have definitely the Vorarlberg preview next Thursday. That will be one to look out for. We're really looking forward to showing you that one. Obviously, it's available to pre-order now. If you like what you hear, you like what you see, you'll get loads of really good benefits, including 5 days early access and some other goodies. And obviously, I think he's tired. He's just knocked over all of my water, so that's a good. You get all of the deluxe stuff with deluxe edition. You get special edition. You get 4 extra old Train Sim World routes as well with the collection. And you get up to 25% discount as well. So there's loads and loads of other stuff on the FAQs. Really recommend you read it. If you've got the time, rewatch the keynote or watch the keynote and read the roadmap articles. There's loads and loads of interesting stuff in there. Admin's gone into overload. I've run out of things to say. Anything from you, Matt, before we finish?
No, let's just end it, please. Thank you all for watching and sticking with us.
I can't believe 500, 600 of you have stuck with us for 3.5 hours. You guys are troopers as much as we are.
Legends.
Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for the lovely feedback that we've had since we've announced Train Sim World 4. We're really excited for you guys to be able to see it and then to be able to play it yourself. And generally, the energy from this live stream has been really, really great as well. We've seen lots of people really excited and giving us really nice feedback. So that's really good to see. Great questions from everybody. Thank you very much. We'll be back next week with Railfan TV, and we will see you on the other side. Thank you very much, everyone. See you later, Matt.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye.